Oh man, looks like we're live. All right, guys, got it. I am live streaming on YouTube. I'm freaking live, guys. So we're gonna open up the chat right now. I am gonna make you guys probably wait about 10, 15 minutes because I have an appointment after this. I have to get ready. So I am gonna open up the chat for those of you watching later on. Feel free to skip ahead 10, 15 minutes, something like that. And then we'll bring DJ and we'll get started. Until then, I'm going to play some music. All you guys feel free to talk amongst yourself in the chat. And, we like to keep things really informal here. So I'll put the music on, and that way you guys can listen to it or mute it, either way. But again, give me about 10 minutes. I'll get ready, maybe 15. And then we'll bring DJ in and we'll get started with the weekly intelligence briefing. Stand by, guys. Figured I better put a message here in the chat so guys know it's not just music running in the background. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Let's get DJ in the room. Right. Let's get things going here, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. What time is it? Almost right on time. All right, damn. I'm pretty solid here with my timing. All right. Let's get DJ in the room. DJ, what's up, man? Fight. Email. Guys, so I want to make y'all aware that gutterfightingsecrets.com is our website. Many of you know it. Many of you have been to it. But if you haven't, check it out. It's worthwhile at least taking a look and seeing what's on there. You know, we've got all kinds of really great products. Not only do we offer solid intelligence training on there in the form of an audiobook, but we also have hand-to-hand combat training, World War II combatives, direct download online training courses. You can go through those courses and learn World War II combatives mixed with modern day combatives, grappling, striking, trapping, clinching, all of that street hardened, battle proven stuff that I have personally used not only in the ring, but also on the street. And it is very highly effective. If you guys want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. So we're getting DJ coming in here. He is signing in as we speak. DJ, what's going on, my man? Hope all is well. Let me just make sure now. Negatory, bro. Getting him on here, getting his feed hooked up. And we are about to hit this.
Check.
Yeah, roger that, bro. 5x5, Lima Charlie to me on that one.
Sweet. Good to go? All right, cool.
Good stuff, man. So I understand your internet was down for a few days, but we are back. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm good. My mic sound okay?
Yeah, no crackling, no bullshit. So it's
yeah, I cleaned it up. My internet was down. They buried some cable lines on the outside of my building, going to the lines on the poles and stuff, and they just jacked up the connections for like a bunch of the units and stuff. It was bad QC on telecom providers end. And then I was gone most of the weekend doing various things, making some content, doing a little training, went out, met up with some buddies. He's got a private range, went and shot there, band practice, all that stuff. So I was out and about anyway for most of it, but it was just like yesterday I was kind of freaking out because I was like, or Monday I was freaking out. I was like, I got work to do. I need to finish my reports. I need to, do my graphic design stuff and everything. So that was kind of a headache, but they finally got to it yesterday and it's all good to go. It's actually running a lot faster than it normally is, so I'm happy about that.
Can't complain about that, man. I mean, sounds like they fucked it up to tune it up, Sometimes that happens.
Yep, thankfully.
So have you been able to stay on top of the current events, what's been happening? I mean, I know there's kind of a lot going on without a lot going on at the same point.
Yeah. I've been playing a little bit of catch up, apart from the end of last week, playing a little bit of catch up, but yeah, I'm, kind of keeping track of a bunch of stuff and just waiting to see what else comes out, because it doesn't seem like a whole lot has come out, but at the same time, a couple of significant things have come out. So we can jump into whatever you want to start with.
Cool. Yeah, I think so. Tommy Gunn, what's up, man?
What's up,
there
everyone?
was a lot of happening since we last caught up. Now, when we last caught up, it looked like it was a possibility that China was going to take Taiwan. They were encircling the island. I mean, since then, they have kind of backed off, but not completely. Very reminiscent of the Russia-Ukraine situation, to be honest, in my opinion. Now we've got these new lawmakers, bullshit artists going over to Taiwan and stirring up the paper tiger that is China. So, I mean, we've got that going on. We've got other stuff on the economic front going on that I can talk about later. But let's, I think, start with kind of what's happening over in the South China Sea and the Strait of Taiwan and get everyone caught up there, because I don't know if everyone kind of knows the ins and outs of what's going on over
Right.
there.
Right. Yeah. So after the or during and then after the Pelosi visit and everything to Taiwan, China was beating its chest and saying that they were going to retaliate, and they were kind of ramping up mobilization of military forces and their naval forces and things like that. And they're still very active. I mean, a lot of the mobilized military units are still stationed in the South, um, whether that's to deal with something insular going on, as much as kind of aiming at Taiwan. I mean, we can get into that a little bit, especially when with the economic side of it, you can cover that. But I mean, they're still mobilized. They're still doing some harassing. They've been doing those military drills and firing missiles and flying into Taiwanese airspace and things like that. They've been encroaching. And
Oh, hold on. I think we lost audio here. DJ, are you with me? I don't think that's on our end over here. I think. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Oh, we're back. We're back. All right. So you were saying that they were actually flying around in doing incursions on Taiwan's airspace.
Yes. Yeah. They've been flying through Taiwan's airspace. They've been doing naval drills and firing missiles into the sea, some of which ended up very close to Japan, which kind of put Japan on a little bit of an alert, and our forces in Japan. So that's kind of stacked on top of everything. And they're just staying very active. And obviously communications intercepts have been kind of escalated and everything. We're trying to glean as much intelligence and communications intercepts as we can to figure out what their moves are and things like that. I mean, there's been some fairly significant intercepts in the past talking about certain operational logistics and things, like with the container vessels for troop transport and things like that. Obviously still an issue. Have to look at the South China ports that can hold those size of ships and see what activities going on with them, monitoring from satellite and aircraft and things like that. And then just overall Taiwan's view on these things and their readiness status and what they're doing to increase their abilities to defend their land. From the U.S. side, with the diplomatic stuff and standpoint, they're really contradicting themselves a lot, because they're talking about this one China doctrine, policy, whatever, but at the same time we're going and supporting Taiwan in maintaining its semblance of autonomy and sovereignty. So it's a very strange dynamic there too. We all know how governments and various branches within like to play both sides and play the espionage and spy game and everything else involved with that. So it's just something that has to be analyzed and just constantly monitored and things on that end. Other than that, with Taiwan, I mean, China still has them in the crosshairs. We just need to keep gleaning information, intercept communications, and monitor everything to see what potential moves in the near future could happen based on what they plan to do. It's a problem as well, because having Taiwan in such high crosshairs, we talked about this last time, they won't stop with Taiwan. They'll look at the Philippines. They'll look at Singapore, Indonesia, Southeast Asia. They will look at those countries as well. Some are much more capable to defend themselves than others. Philippines is a prime example, but the wealth of natural resources, mineral resources, and everything else that the Philippines and other countries in Southeast Asia have to offer is making China salivate again, especially because of their current situation. So if you want to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, on the economic front with China, I mean, look, I'm no economist, and I'm certainly no Chinese economist, but I do know that their data, their factory data missed, their CPI data kind of missed, their consumer price index stuff. So like their economic situation is not doing well. Now, obviously, we all know about the Evergrande situation that took place last year, where all of this real estate and this big company defaulted and this and that. And so like they build these big ghost cities and no one lives there, and they charge way too much rent for your average Chinese citizen to like be able to ever afford it pretty much. And they're just in a bad way economically. Their COVID lockdowns, their zero COVID policies. Hopefully I can say that word without getting like shot in the head these days, but it's really fucked them and it's really screwed them, right? And it's continuing to do so because they've shut down factories and this and that. So they're in a very, very bad way. I think it was today our time, or yesterday their time, they cut rates, they cut their interest rates. So they're trying to like do whatever they can to boost their market and stuff, their version of the stock market, their version of like, I think it's the FTSE 100 or something like that. But it's messed up, and a lot of these Chinese companies are now delisting from the US stock market by choice, right? By choice. It's not like, before we saw that happening, they were delisting them because of like faulty data, and you know how the Chinese are, they just don't report the right shit. So no, these companies are actually going on in the Hong Kong market instead, because in my opinion, this is probably politically motivated, right? The Chinese government says, you don't want to, go to America. And they say, all right, we don't have any choice because the CCP is telling us to do this. And they leave the NYC, New York Stock Exchange. So that's kind of what's going on with China economically. Now, interestingly enough to me, I think that China, while they are in a very bad way economically, I don't think that physical conflict would do anything to help them out of that. I mean, it's funny because sometimes we talk about, a large scale conflict is the only way out of a large scale economic depression. But in the case of China, I just don't see that happening because they're reliant on trading with the US and, Europeans in general. So I don't think their little alliance with Russia and North Korea is going to do them any really good with, exports and stuff like that. So they are, in my opinion, very aware of this. I think they're playing the long-term game. Now, will we see Xi Jinping like fuck up and like Putin did and, get greedy and go after Taiwan? It's a distinct possibility because we see every Chinese leader that's ever served has always had his thing, right? Like we all know it with Mao, it was like, creating the Communist Party, and like every other subsequent leader has had one big thing that they're known for. So far, Xi Jinping has COVID. So like he doesn't want that to be his legacy. He might be getting impatient, but we'll see. I mean, there is elections in China coming up. So maybe after that at some point, again, we'll have to see. That's kind of what's happening on the Chinese US front, economically speaking.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like a wise move for them to move the Hong Kong market too, since they control Hong Kong now. So
yeah.
They can cook the books however they want to make it look like they're actually turning a profit again.
It doesn't matter, man. I mean, that's exactly, you got it, bro. You got it.
Yep. And I mean, as far as other elements of China's involvement globally, all of their work and operations going on in Africa and other parts of the Middle East have not been going so well. There's been a little bit of turmoil for them, and a lot of the locals in those countries and regions that were working on these projects with the Chinese are not happy because they're not being paid well, or they're just not happy with the quality of the product.
Yeah.
It's a number of things apart from China just being a little bit aggressive and really demanding to take over resources and things like that. And it's not looking very good for them either in that on that side of the world. So, excuse me, something for them that they're obviously concerned about, and they're going to be trying to rectify in some way or another. So
And it's
Can't do it
interesting.
without money though.
No, and exactly right. And it's interesting you bring up, the Belt and Road Initiative is because I've been tracking this as well. And it seems like every single country they have gone into thusly far is like freaking pissed at them. Like even their bestie, their like secret bestie, which is Pakistan, is very annoyed with them at this point. You look at Sri Lanka right now, they were like, don't park your military ship here. And they're like, too bad we're parking it. Like you owe us money. Every single country, it seems like, has gotten wise. All of these African countries are very annoyed, like you said. And it's just interesting to me to see that this, I don't know what you call it, iron glove diplomacy, or what they have a name for it, right? Their tiger diplomacy or something like that.
Yeah.
Wolf warrior diplomacy.
Okay.
It's just not working too well, and so some analysts have speculated, well, China's ready to take on the rest of the world. See these photos. There's like video of the Chinese Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts going around where they're like these 6-year-old kids dressed in full kit, full uniforms, bump helmets, and like firing off mortar rounds, like 6-year-old kids. But that's propaganda. The Chinese are very good at their propaganda, their video propaganda. They're very good at placing agents within TikTok and within social media and saying, look how tolerant we are. We're not killing Muslims at all. We're just eating dumplings. But no, like it's a propaganda game. So I really do think that people are underestimating how badly China is really hurting right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, as far as their civil defense goes, yeah, it is big propaganda because I mean, majority of the population's still in lockdown, and they're not going to the general Joe public in large to get them up to snuff in civil defense stuff. They're being very selective about who they grab to do that kind of propaganda, but also train up for civil defense activities and things like that. And then when it comes to the tech side, I mean, they own TikTok, and they own Epic Games now, and actually funny because the guy who started Zoom fled China. Zoom is a US based company now out of San Francisco. I think it's San Francisco. Maybe it's Silicon Valley. I can't remember, but he's the creator of that and the owner of Zoom is in the US now, and he Chinese IT guy, but he's like, nope, I'm out. This is becoming a US company. So China really doesn't have any stake in Zoom anymore, along with some other tech companies who have pulled out. And then kind of circling around back to the production and manufacturing deals and trading with the West and things like that. I mean, look at all the companies that are moving out of China. They're moving to Vietnam. They're moving to India. They're moving to Taiwan. They're moving to all these other countries. And that's hurting China's wallet even more and their stance in the business sector. On top of it, militarily and geopolitically too, India and China, much like India and Pakistan, India and China are kind of at odds up in the Himalayas too, and in on the northern borders. So the fact that Chinese warships trying to park that are parked in Sri Lanka, which technically is part of India, even though it's also it's still its own autonomous country, even though I think now with the complete failure of the Sri Lankan government, I think India is just going to have to take over, and it's just going to be the island, that part of India now. That's going to be problematic too in a developing time period, apart from the tensions in the north borders. I've seen videos, I'm sure you have too, of Indian soldiers and Chinese soldiers literally getting in a fist fight on their border in the north, like shoving each other and everything, so they're not getting in the firefights and the battles that they are with the Pakistanis, but it could escalate to that. And both are nuclear powers. Pakistan and India are nuclear powers. India and China are nuclear powers. So that could get very ugly too. India has been increasing its ties to the United States and the West. Some major firearms acquisition contracts, apart from other things that are now being bought and produced for the Indian military, especially up in the north. They've been requesting 7.62 by 51 NATO 308 Win battle rifles and things like that for mountain warfare, made by SIG and some other companies in the US. So that's another thing too. China's feeling pressure from a lot of sides right on its border too. So that's something else that people have to acknowledge too, that U.S. isn't the only one doing the saber rattling and a little bit of antagonization as much as China is back too. So there are other players, other major players in the mix.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up the brain drain, that this is a phenomenon that, the tech industry has been labeling in China, and very astute to do so. It's a big problem for them, especially with the chips. This is kind of a sector I watch, and I talk with a lot of people in the chip industry, and they're saying to me, Will, China can't produce chips the way that the rest of the world can, Taiwan or the United States even at this point, because all their people, whenever they get them trained, then they just flee China and they go to either Taiwan or like the United States or Canada. So this happens with a lot of tech. They're smartest of the smart who are able to make money and like make a good product or have the training to design, technology that can work elsewhere. Absolutely do. Not only do they make more money working outside of China, but they're free. So they can't hold on to the brain power in China. It's a huge problem for them.
Yep.
And so this is just another reason why China is in the position that it's in. It's almost to me, DJ, like a raccoon with its back against the wall, and you've got a broom and you're swatting it, right? Like it's just, and it really is like, feels like it has no choice but to like jump on your face, even though it knows you probably will break its neck or whatever, right? So it seems like a very dangerous creature China does. A cornered dog or whatever it is. And I don't know, what do you think? Where do you think it goes from here, man? Do you think that they do something stupid and lash out, or do you think that Xi Jinping and the Communist Party is how should I say? Do you think that they're going to stick to the Sun Tzu principle of the art of war?
Great metaphor, by the way, with the raccoon against the wall. I like that. It's hard to tell, which is why I say we need to really monitor from the intelligence and communication side and everything as much as what we see and can monitor from the economic and business side of things. It could go a couple of ways. They could lash out. They could do something and start attacking a country or create a multi-front proxy situation like what Russia does. The complete flip side of that is they could have a final total collapse of their economic and government systems in the country, because the longer lockdowns happen, the longer pressure from all the issues in Hong Kong happen, China, India, in the West in general and everything, the longer that goes on, the less sustainable it is for China to fight that. Because they're just losing money and losing resources and everything else at that point. And it'll come to the point where they're either going to have to really invest in internal resourcing, digging for their own precious minerals and resources within China, like amped up 300%, to bring their GDP back up and reinstate some business initiative along with some economic sustainability for themselves, or it's going to collapse.
And we see them doing that right now, don't we, DJ?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the big initiative of Xi Jinping at this point, I think.
Yeah. So
will it work is the real question, right? Because like you said, like that's a lot to ask for from this economy.
It is. That's just across the board. That's a massive undertaking. That does not happen quickly either. So, especially when the resources are already so tight and so limited and dwindling, quite the feat for them to be able to try and pull that off.
Now here's a question for you, man. And this is, so the limited, intelligence training that I went through, as far as, analyst shit, right?
Yeah.
They told us that when you're looking at military buildups, you're really looking at all the assets moving into an area. And we've seen with Russia, they started moving assets. It's trading, and moving assets. And we all know how that went. So we're seeing the same thing going on here with Taiwan.
Yes, we are.
The Chinese are smart enough to, I think, realize that if they just start moving assets and putting them in place, we're going to know something's up. So they're taking this as a perfect excuse to put all the pieces together while also making it look like, oh, there's nothing going on here. Do you think that I'm kind of on point with where I'm going with that?
I think you're right. And you alluded to the Sun Tzu method before, and I think it's that hybridized with what they're taking away from the playbooks of Russia in that regard. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of mass mobilization of units in the south of China. They're still doing their drills and training and with their naval units and stuff. So that is extremely plausible. And again, definitely needs to be monitored heavily in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, John, he does know his stuff. That's
Thank you,
why
brother.
that's why he's with us, man. He's a good asset to the family. Just
Yeah.
like all you guys are. I mean, all of you guys are part of the GFS family, so don't forget that. And if you ever have anything, send us an email. DJ's got his GFS email. I've got mine, gutterfightingsecrets@gmail.com.
I need to check it. I haven't checked it in months.
You lazy. Well, listen, I'm sure there's probably a thing or two in there that that needs attention. Because if you guys ever can't get a hold of DJ, because I know DJ's got several things always going on at once, and he's a busy guy. If you really need anything, get at me as well, and I'll ping him as well. So DJ and I obviously have each other's numbers. So
yeah,
George Washington, General, sir,
hey.
Good to see you.
Welcome to the party, brother.
It's good to have you on the team, DJ, and I'm glad we're doing these weekly intelligence briefings at this point because it's so important. And not only for the prepping side of things, but even for the economic side of things. I mean, if we see Taiwan get invaded, like all of a sudden, the fucking market's gonna go like that. So, and that will affect everybody, not just people who are in the market. So,
and I think regarding Taiwan too, kind of as one of the final notes on it, we're working very closely with them for apart from military training and supply and support logistically with weapons and everything else and training. I think part of why we're so closely communicating with them on an elevated level and basis right now is to basically reappropriate and relocate resources for chip production and everything else somewhere else in the emergency that would happen. Because I mean, most major corporations, financial districts and stuff, they're not just staged in one place. They have hub offices all over the world, Dubai, the US, Europe, wherever. And it's the same in Taiwan. There's a lot of major players that have districts and offices in Taipei and other and such. So being able to relocate those resources and that side of business, all the logistics therein, that would have to be done fairly quickly just to ensure the stability of resources and the production and everything else. So that's something else that I think that we're doing in tandem with Taiwan too. And kind of circling back again with brain drain real quick. That last contract I was working, I was interacting with foreigners a lot, and the university here is huge, and there was a lot of students coming from China to learn, studying advanced degrees in computer engineering, medical, biological science, things like that. A good portion of those students I would see trying to find every way they could not to go back if something more happens. Some of them, I'm pretty sure, were in the PLA, but some of them, they're kind of easy to point out sometimes. But some of them, I can definitely tell just from talking to them, and very nice kids. Some of them do not want to go back or would not go back if something like that happened, which is another problem for China and a benefit for us as long as they're not fucking spies. So, that's another little side factor there too, because I've seen that firsthand. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just one of those additional things when it comes to the brain drain and some of the issues that China's having there too. So.
Well, I mean, after this CHIPS Act just passed, I mean, this is what that, as you know, DJ, this is what that was all about, is getting the resources out of Taiwan and away from China in here. They're building in Arizona as we speak.
Yeah.
Taiwan Semi is building their foundry here. Intel is expanding their operations.
You
I
got the
believe.
Foxconn facility up by me.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, this is a great thing. I wish we would have started doing this, in the Trump administration, but it wasn't possible. So now this is where it's going to be. But unfortunately for us, and this is what my contacts in the chip industry say, is that these foundries, Taiwan Semi specifically, won't be ready for at least 3 to 4 years.
Yep.
More like 5 or 6, if we're really being honest, to get up to production speed.
Yep.
And if in fact, TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, got hit, and Taiwan got taken, well, what would happen is the guys who own that are patriots, right? They're Taiwanese patriots and they love America and they love Taiwan. So the equipment that they use to actually make these chips is very specific and very sensitive machinery. China wants this stuff because they don't really, like I said, their brain drain problem, they don't really have the proper techniques and the proper machines to actually produce these chips. So one of the things that China is in fact very much after in Taiwan is Taiwan Semi and the machines and the knowledge of how they're going to do this, because this stuff is trade secrets. Now, yeah, are they conducting industrial espionage and trying to steal, plans and stuff? Yeah, but what they really
China does that all the time. Yeah.
What they really want to do is get boots on the ground inside that factory and start reverse engineering these machines. So Taiwan Semi, and this is not public knowledge, but it's also not secret in any way, is they have plans to actually destroy all of those machines should Taiwan start being invaded. Okay, so this is a bad thing, and it would end up leaving us with about a 45 to 60-day supply of semiconductors worldwide. Very dangerous thing. I mean, yeah, we would ramp up production here, but again, all of those machines and all of that very specific equipment, I mean, that would really put a very big monkey wrench in the supply chain of semiconductors. So you think your used car is valuable now? Well, just hold on to your bootstraps if Taiwan gets taken. So that's a thing you really have to worry about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. 100%, dude. Well said. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big problem, and we have to move more production logistics and capabilities back here stateside. And that goes for other elements of U.S. infrastructure too, because I remember some dudes talking a while back. One was with the Department of Energy, one was with the State Department and stuff. Some major infrastructure components, like certain transformers and stuff, are made in China. And they brought them over, and they found in the computer coding that China had programmed a backdoor remote shut down access. Push of a button, they could shut down the grid. So we need to make everything in-house as far as that goes. There's no excuse to outsource any vital infrastructure for the United States or any other coalition partner for that matter to a country that is blatantly stealing technology and intellectual property and patents, but also doing that kind of subversive, destructive activity. Yeah. And yeah, Tommy Gun, you're right. Yeah. The China or Canada has an agreement with China, which they need to remedy. Obviously not going to happen while True Dunce is in office, but they do the winter warfare training up there too.
Speaking of winter warfare, George Washington asked if DJ has gone to One Shepherd yet. DJ was with me. We did Winter Forge. It wasn't One Shepherd. It was with SNS Training.
Training Solutions. Yeah. We were at the One Shepherd grounds, but I talked to Brent 0331 because I had talked to Udo, the company commander for the Missouri chapter for One Shepherd. And Brent gave me a little bit more information because Udo wasn't sure. And I'm not sure if he talked to Doc Larson or who, but Brent told me all I have to do is attend the 2-day Warrior Basic course, and then I can attend whatever FTXs that I want to. Right. It's just finding the time for that, because like a weekend is much better than trying to figure out sometime during the week to drive over 8 hours one way down, do a 2-day training, and then come back and then do my day-to-day and my jobs and stuff. It's just a lot easier for the weekends because I can usually take an extra day or two off that's connected to the weekend to be able to go down and do stuff. It's just more viable for me, but that's just the way that they want to do it, unfortunately. Even though the other way is, since I've already trained with SNS, anytime SNS is involved with an FTX for One Shepherd, I can come down as part of SNS's crew to do FTXs and things like that. like I just want to have fun with it. I mean, the training obviously is good and pretty invaluable that One Shepherd provides, but I'm pretty up to snuff on all that stuff. So I mean, it's a rehashing that I just don't really want to do, but
No, I
it's
can't blame you, man. I mean,
yeah.
it really sucks and you get very sore. I'm looking forward to, I got 2 more semesters left before I get my One Warrior tab. And then I'll probably only go to the FTXs after that just to keep myself refreshed.
Exactly.
Uh,
I want to have
yeah.
fun with it. I want to kind of be one of those force multipliers for the FTX and make the event a little bit more, uh numerous with people and have fun with it and everything. I don't want to have to go through the WBC and treat it like a fucking boot again. So I'm just like, you know,
Yeah.
it's just like, look, I already know how to do all this stuff. It's I think the one thing I would really garner improvement on would be the radiocom stuff, just because
Oh, yeah.
they have certain radios and stuff that I don't really get to use all that often. So but
2 things, radio comms and land nav. It's just so perishable,
I'm
you know?
I'm freaking mint with land nav, dude. I have a
Oh,
really good
really?
innate sense of direction anyway, but like land nav, yeah, dude, it's super easy for me with land nav, you know. Yeah, it's you give me a
Lucky you,
basic.
man. I can't find my way out of a fucking paper bag, bro. I'm terrible with that shit.
I love land nav. I love Lensatic, using the Lensatic compass and a decent map, whether it is a road map or a topo map or whatever. I love that stuff. It's super easy for me, just for some reason. So
I was with, you guys know me. I like the Asian girls. So I was with a couple of Chinese girls in my lifetime. One time I was with this Chinese girl and we were getting deep and I said, "Hey, do you believe in God?" And she turns to me, she goes, dead serious. She goes, "I believe in the Chinese Communist Party." And I'm like, "Holy shit." So another time though, I was with this other chick and she was like a student and she was doing anything she possibly could to not go back to China. She was telling me all this fucked up shit about China and how like it's like hell over there. And she was like, "You can't speak out against it. Like even if you say one word to your father about it, the next thing you know, someone will show up and you'll disappear." And like, so to your point about, the Chinese citizens, there are some out there that are like definitely like, and I think that a lot of the time those people are probably fucking either spies or like PLA in some way. But the majority of these Chinese people that I always speak with here in the States fucking hate the Communist Party, man. And what I heard was that a lot of Communist Party members are disavowing their allegiance to that, like publicly, once they get their feet on friendly soil. That's good. And there's been a record number since the unfriendliness with Taiwan. So I really do think that, I mean, while I don't think that we'll see a rebellion against the CCP within China, I don't think that's possible, and I don't think that'll happen. I do think that the communist government knows they're on very shaky ground with their people, and I think that they really are. They're walking a tightrope between keeping their people happy and showing strength, and keeping their people happy and like fed at the same time. You know what I mean?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. They're on the brink of a famine right now too. I mean, it's people. I mean, what Russia's doing with its people right now, and silencing and suppressing and going after journalists and penalizing people just for speaking out against the special military operation, and everything going on. You think it's bad there, which it is, and I feel for them because there's a lot of really nice Russian people that I've met and know. It's even worse in China by far. I mean, they just for texting or tweeting something or whatever, they will drag you in a police station and interrogate you strapped in these god awful chairs and stuff. I've seen footage of that. Just because you get drunk and say some kind of joke or talk shit about the cops in China, they'll drag your ass in and grill you, and you could face potential jail time just for words, just for words. So it's like they're very serious about that. But on the catch 22 of that, because they are being so hard on their people and more are denouncing their allegiance to China and things like that. And you saw what happened with Hong Kong already. and everything else. What's up, Ed? It's only going to get worse for them the more they treat their own people like this. On top of the resource shortages and everything else that they have going on, this last year and this year have been a very low yield of rice and other core food resources for them. And that's causing problems because there are regions where some people are on the brink of starvation or they already are, especially when you look at the Uyghur population areas and things like that, and how they've been really treating them bad too. So it's only going to get worse in that regard unless they make those changes too. And it's either
Do you think that a lot of prescription medication is actually made in China? I mean, do you think that this is something we should be concerned with?
oh, definitely. And I mean, apart from their involvement with sending chemists to train the cartels on how to make fentanyl and a bunch of other terrible synthetic drug and substances, it is a problem, both for China and for a good portion of the world. There's a lot of ecological, environmental damage that comes from making pharmaceuticals as much as petrochemicals or anything else. There's a lot of issues with that for just the environment of China and the people producing them, because obviously they don't have the EPA and OSHA regulations that we do here and things like that. So their people are at risk too in the manufacturing process. But yes, it is an issue because at any time they could just pull the plug and force these pharmaceutical manufacturing companies to shut down. And then you're going to have a global shortage of essential medications. We're already seeing an issue with insulin and some other pharmaceuticals. I haven't really seen an issue with antibiotics and things like that, because thankfully there's other production facilities around the globe that make those at as much of a capacity as China does. But other medications and pharmaceuticals, absolutely. And they can force those facilities to just shut down. They can close them at any time, and that would create a global shortage and a stranglehold on that market. So again, much like with everything else, we just need to refacilitate and reappropriate those resources from manufacturing and otherwise other places.
Yeah.
And increase the safety of it.
This is a good 100%, man. This is a good opportunity for me to bring up, guys. By the way, I'm a paid representative of Duration Health, but durationhealth.com/gutter fighting secrets. Right, these guys will give you a personalized medical kit with antibiotics, whatever type of material that you deem necessary. You'll have a consultation with one of their doctors, an actual doctor, and you'll go over what you're concerned about and what you want in your medical kit. Okay. Now, they're not going to give you like pain medicine or anything like that, but actual antibiotics. This is probably the top company that I could ever recommend. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that I'm getting paid. Okay. I'm only paid when you guys, get a kit using that freaking code, Gutter Fighting Secrets. Right. But I'm representing these guys because I feel so strongly about it. If you want the ultimate prepping material, get one of these kits. It's a first aid kit. Not only do you have actual medical supplies, but on top of that, you've got whatever antibiotics you deem necessary. So you tell the doctor, hey, I'm worried about this situation. Shit hits the fan, lights go out, no more antibiotics available. I want some penicillin, some Cipro, some whatever. And they sit down with you and they say, okay, let's make a plan. Not only will you get that, they're also every year or so, they're going to call you on expiration. Okay. When that stuff's about ready to expire, they're going to say, it's getting ready to expire. Why don't we ship you out some new pills? Okay. And you're not paying anything extra for that. Also, they're going to tell you, yeah, it's expired, but maybe there's some wiggle room here. So very solid company, great company, not to mention the fact that if you do go overseas and travel, especially in third world countries like DJ and I do, you're going to want this. Okay. So they'll put, Imodium or whatever it is in there and create a specific design and a specific plan for you. And this plan can change every time you go somewhere else. They'll ship you new stuff. So durationhealth.com/gutter fighting secrets. And that is actually going to get you $50 off your first kit. So that's my little sales pitch, but I really do love Duration Health. I recommend them 100%. Next time I go overseas, I will be bringing one of their kits with me, and I have to pay for this kit. So it's not like I'm blowing smoke. But yeah, guys, check them out. DurationHealth.com/gutterfighting secrets, $50 off your first purchase with them. And it's a really good idea to do so.
They
DJ,
got-
what's on your radar? I didn't mean to cut you off there. What's on your radar as far as Russia goes, man?
I was just gonna say the Duration Health, they have a really good brand of anti-malaria medication. So that's a big one for foreign travel, especially to almost the whole of Africa and other places. So malaria is even an
want
issue.
the kind, right? I've never taken malaria medication. I'm assuming you probably have, but yeah, that's what I thought. So they have the kind that actually doesn't give you like nightmares and night terrors and like hallucinations. So yeah, you want this company. They know what's up and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, far
And,
better than the PB pills and all that. So yeah.
I heard those things are fucking terrible.
Oh, they were awful. Yeah. Apart from like night terrors and night sweats and all that. I mean, they make you crap your brains out too. It's almost as bad as getting malaria. It's like, oh God. But I digress. Oh yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, old habits die hard. It's the only vice I have. So fuck it. So what'd you say? What'd you ask about Russia?
Yeah, about Russia. Now I know that the Donbass region is going crazy. And oh, by the way, we got to talk about this. The nuclear plant, right? That is being assaulted. Now I heard that Russia actually is backed away from that, or was it Ukraine? What are you following what's happening there at all?
I haven't seen any updates on the Zaporizhia plants in the last like 24 hours, unfortunately. I need to check in on those. That is like the one thing I'm behind on. But yes, as far as the Donbass and Crimea and Kherson and Mykolaiv and a couple of other locations, all of that equipment that the French and the US and everyone else is giving the Ukrainians, man, are they using it to good effect. The HIMARS, because we finally gave them the long range rockets for the HIMARS system. They're able to reach out and hit the bridges and other vital infrastructure, ammo depots, barracks, all that stuff in Russian controlled Donbass and Crimea and everything. And the HIMARS can stay well within a safe range away from the front lines and lines of contact to be able to accomplish that. Such a precise and effective system. I've got friends, fighting in the Ukrainian military and stuff, and they're very happy that one of them is a U.S. Army veteran, but he's originally Ukrainian. He went back to fight, and he's very happy that those systems are in place. Apart from the French Caesar artillery, we gave them 777s, M777 howitzers, where they have a superior range to Russian artillery. So now they're able to outgun the Russians anywhere between 10 and 200 kilometers, which is amazing. So that's a big plus. So the Ukrainians are making some strategic moves. Speak the Truth has been doing fairly regular map updates and contact updates about that. But they're making some big moves. So hopefully they're going to have Kherson back under full control soon. Zaporizhia being on the south side of the river, it's been a pretty big feat that the Ukrainians were able to get around and get to Zaporizhia to try and take it back. Again, I don't know if it's been fully taken back or not, but that's a big move, especially because Zaporizhia produces a pretty good percentage of the power, not just to Ukraine, but for Southern Europe. So that's going to be a big win for the Ukrainians, apart from being able to move further into the Donbass and take back their land. That's where the hardest fight is, because that's what's been going on since 2014. That's where the most entrenched and seasoned fighters are. So that's going to be the hardest fight still, apart from everything else that they're going to be able to take back from the rest of the South and the rest of the Far East regions of Ukraine. So
it's interesting to see what's going on still in Ukraine. I mean, there's there's a lot of news that, now at this point, what is it, like 6 months in, Ukraine's getting glossed over a lot, but there's a lot going on out there still and a lot of importance. I know we did do that update about the Zaporov or whatever nuclear plant, and it looked a little shady there for a while. So I think the situation is stabilized.
Yeah.
And thank gosh it did. There's a lot going on in the world right now that we need to be tracking, specifically right now, China, but still need to keep an eye on Russia, Ukraine. There's shit popping off in the Middle East as well, Iran's just acting up like crazy. Israel and Palestine are at it again. And it's, there's still shit going on in Syria too. So,
And Iraq,
yeah.
Libya,
Yeah.
Yemen. Yeah, I mean, at least half of the Middle East is still fighting right now.
Mm-hmm.
Egypt's not stable still, unfortunately. And they're dealing with an encroachment of extremism. Iran is trying to take over Iraq, really. So many Iranian militia forces are in Iraq right now, both fighting the Daesh or ISIS, but also at odds with the Iraqi military police forces and the Kurds and stuff that we've supplied and trained. So that's a huge dynamic there too. The Yemeni conflict with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, that really hasn't let up at all. Libya is still a mess. There really isn't a solid government in place, even though there's kind of like that military junta kind of in control. It's still a mess. I mean, extremism is rife there. It's unstable. Definitely a no-go zone for tourists. I mean, even Egypt right now, unfortunately, and tourism ends up making up like 60% of their GDP. It's really not safe to travel to Egypt as a tourist in large, unless you got some really.
It's funny you say that. I just had a consultation with someone for the travel safety end of these things, and they were asking about Egypt because they know I've been over there. I told them, listen, don't go. I mean, I don't ever say that about places. I figure if people want to go somewhere and check it out, but at this point, Egypt's just not legit. Even back in 2020, when I was there, it was shady. Okay. Like, I'm not going to lie. I
Yeah.
speak the language, fucking shady, but no. And I told them, don't go somewhere else because you don't want to risk it. I mean, even in Cairo right now, like the fucking terrorists, man, they're making a comeback, and it's shady,
And the government there right now, I mean, they're not treating their own people very well, and they haven't been. Ever since the Arab Spring uprisings, it has not been good there. And they're just, the stability isn't there. You would really have to pay off a lot of people and probably hire security to even feel remotely safe traveling there as a tourist. Yeah, it's bad, and it's that expansion of extremism. I mean, we were talking on Africa briefly too. We're seeing it all over Africa. You've got Al Shabaab and all the warlords still in Somalia and the surrounding area, affecting Kenya and other places. You have Boko Haram in Niger and Chad and those places. You've got Islamic extremist units that have popped up in Uganda and Rwanda and into the east of the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. You still have a conflict going on to the north in the Central African Republic between the Muslims, the Christians, and the government. And the Russians are there too, kind of playing some influence games there with Wagner Group. So it's a mess all over the place. You have civil wars in Ethiopia, the continuing conflict in Sudan right now. People thought Darfur was bad, and it was. Same shit's still happening. The Janjaweed are still taking over. There's a lot of Arab influence into Sudan right now, which is not good for the native and minority populations. Ethiopia, it's major tribal group against major tribal group vying for power, and a lot of that going on again. Yeah, it's very messy in those situations. Thankfully, South Africa seems to have stabilized, and I have a close friend that I talk to a lot in South Africa. Things seem to be going okay there. Still high crime rate. You have to be careful where you go. A lot of those truck heists and stuff still going on, but you're not seeing the riots or anything that were happening a little while ago. Um, couple of places. Rwanda is supposedly one of the safest countries in Africa. The two safest countries in Africa are Senegal and Gambia. Angola is actually relatively safe now too. Those are, as far as travel and tourism would go, those Rwanda, for the most part, I wouldn't go to the very west of Rwanda that borders the DRC. It is pretty dangerous there. The rest of Rwanda, pretty safe. And then Gambia and Senegal are very, very safe places. Their militaries are good. The U.S. has good partnership with them. Those two countries have not had a war in a very long time. Very stable countries, very friendly. And I know a couple of local people from Gambia and Senegal, and they're always telling me if I ever go to Senegal, they'll put me up in their house, and I'm like, dude, that's awesome. So, really nice people. So as far as anyone looking to travel to Africa, I would recommend those places.
Yeah, no, and it's, by the way, guys, we do offer travel safety consultations. Not only me, but we got DJ here as well. And DJ spent many years working as an executive protection agent, going and traveling to places like this. So he's very up to speed with it. And we do also sell travel safety audio program. We also have a physical PDF that we can include with that. So check them out. If you guys are traveling at all, send us an email and we'll get with you and we'll be able to help you formulate a really solid plan. That is, if you're not just going over to Europe. Speaking of Europe, Tommy Gunn says Germany will be a cold winter. And then Case sounded like a password for it. It did sound like a slip phrase. I was wondering that too. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, with Europe right now in the winter with the gas, right? Because they're struggling, and we got plenty of gas over here, but they're rationing. They actually have started shutting off lights in major German cities and telling people take 5-minute showers and stuff. It's pretty crazy. DJ, are you following that at all?
I am. I got a lot of friends in Europe. I'm up to snuff on that. Yeah, they're having some serious power issues, and I guess they're restarting some of their coal power plants. They fully shut down and decommissioned all their nuclear power plants. So they were talking about trying to restart a couple of those, but there was a lot of pushback from all the environmental groups and everybody, which were the catalyst for shutting them down in the first place, especially after what happened in Chernobyl, but in Ukraine. But they're restarting some of their coal power plants. So they're hoping by sometime next year that they'll have those back up and running. But then they have to get coal, and they're going to be getting it from Scandinavia, probably the US, because we still do coal mining here, and a couple of other places in South America, in Africa, and some other places. So it's a big problem for them. And it's something like only 30% of all, and this includes the UK, only 30% of all households have AC units. They've been suffering extreme heat waves with historical record-breaking temps in the UK and in Germany and in other places recently, and it's killed some people. And it's problematic because they don't normally see these kinds of temperatures, and that's just kind of the natural changing process of our globe. And this happens every couple hundred years. I've talked about a Nova Science documentary from years ago, where they were taking ice and soil core samples to monitor the heating and cooling cycles of the planet. We're in one of those warming cycles, and we have been since right around the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So we probably have another 100 years, 150 years of a warming cycle before it goes back into a cooling cycle. So that's just something to consider, apart from everything else everyone wants to attribute things to, whether that's actually efficacious or not. That's still to be decided through continual monitoring and testing. But yeah, now it's an issue for Europe as a whole, because they don't have that tech in place. There's been record purchases of AC units, window units, and installation of HVAC systems and things like that. And again, they do things differently in Europe than they do here. They have different systems, different power source grids and everything else. So it's a challenge for them. But something that's slowly being remedied by increasing their capabilities to produce electricity in-house and not rely on Russia and other places for gas and things like that. But also the upgrade of these basic essential housing units. So it's a problem. And yeah, some of my friends definitely felt the heat there. And as far as winter goes, outside of the major cities in Europe, I mean, a lot of the homes still have fireplaces and wood stoves and things like that. That's really not going to be a problem for them. In the cities, yeah, it's going to be more of a problem because that's where the grid sustainability is going to come into play. Look at what happened in Texas because they have their own insular grid and it failed during the winter. And people were without heat and power for, I think, 1 or 2 weeks, and people died. So Europe needs to take a hard look at that too and really expedite the game efficiently but effectively to get their power sourcing up to snuff so that they can sustain themselves. It's a big issue, and they really need to step up their game on it. And also regarding Europe, and then I'll jump over to Central and South America. Also regarding Europe, in the Netherlands, there's been those mass farmer protests and everything like that because of the fertilizer bans, which we saw happen in Sri Lanka and India too. Look what happened. Certain fertilizers, and I'm not talking about GMOs, we're just talking about fertilizer, is essential for good, healthy, and large crop yield, which is very important, especially for a small country like the Netherlands, because that's a big part of their GDP, is to be able to grow and produce a good yield, a good healthy yield of crops. And restricting that is costing the farmers, and it's putting more pressure on them too, because then they can't produce as much. So they're protesting, mass protests going on, and much like the trucker convoy that we saw in Canada and in the US, farmer convoys going on, and there's been fighting and there's been everything going on, and it is a huge issue. That's going to cause all kinds of food source constraints across Europe, and some products end up from the Netherlands end up making their way here too, but definitely much more Europe. And I love Dutch chocolate; it's delicious. But they get their their cocoa, cacao and all that. They get that from South America and Africa and stuff. It doesn't grow great in the Netherlands just because of the climate, but they have great chocolate. But
Dutch
yeah,
cheese is pretty good as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And me, I love herring and other fish and things like that. And it's fishing and fishery is a big part of their GDP as well. And the UK, Scotland, the Netherlands, and a couple other countries have actually, there's been some increased restriction and limitation on fishing over the years as well. That's problematic too, because then overfishing is definitely a huge problem. And there needs to be a conservation of sorts so that fishing can survive, and and we don't run out of those resources. Fish is a huge staple diet, especially for Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Germany, France, Belgium, all those places, UK, fish and chips, Scotland and everything, and Ireland and everything. So apart from other countries. So it's a big double-edged sword when it comes to the fishing industry too. So it's something to keep an eye on, and that's what's causing prices to rise when it comes to tuna and other things.
Now, DJ, have you heard about in the Netherlands, they are purposely culling or killing cattle to fight against greenhouse emissions?
Yeah, I heard some bullshit about that too, and that was part of it too, apart from the fertilizer, because methane and fertilizers and everything too. But yeah, I was hearing things about that too. And I ended up seeing some footage about it. I was like, that's pretty messed up, dude. I mean, that's, you don't do that.
No.
You need that food,
Yeah,
you need that sustainability.
Well, that's the problem with these Europeans. I mean, they are so wrapped up in this whole global warming bullshit And like you said, it's debatable. I mean, yeah, is the fucking planet getting hotter? Yeah, but like, is it us that's making it hotter? Like, I don't know. But they are so wrapped up in all this green energy shit that they do it to the detriment of their own economy and their own society and their own people. I mean, look what's going on now in Germany, right? Like right behind me, like you got, and that's Cologne. Okay, that's Cologne, Germany, very famous place.
Beautiful
That
city.
building is
Beautiful.
usually, yeah, it's awesome and it's usually lit up, very pretty. It's like a very great church. And look what it's like World War II now. All right, so like idiots. Trump told them this like 4 years ago. He was like, "You guys need to get your shit together. Stop buying all the shit from Russia." Oh no, we have to be there. Environmental. And now look, it's sad, but at the same point, they're very I don't know, they're very like socialist, liberal, like not smart. So
Yeah, they need to restart, I think, somewhere between 9 and 13 coal burning power plants across the country to get their grid, get their energy and grid supply in-house up to snuff to be able to sustain themselves. So that's a problem. They really need to step up their game. I think they've only reactivated 4 as of right now, I think. So
natural gas just went to its all-time high the other day in the market, and
yep.
I'm looking at coal plays right now as we speak, trying to find the right one. But I think that that's going to be a very promising thing for investors coming up here at some point. Coal
Yep.
plays.
Yep. And I mean, the US is a big producer of natural gas as well. And we're sending natural gas over to Europe now too. So but that takes a while to get there. We don't have a pipeline running along the bed of the Atlantic over there, so it's all by ship. So it's a problem. So yeah, they really need to step up their game there. And yeah, when it comes to the environmental pack and all these groups and the vegans and everything, the reduction of fertilizer use and everything is going to hurt them too, because they can't get their plants as easily then too, and the cost of all that is going to go up too. Nobody's getting paid more. Nobody's getting paid more. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do when a head of lettuce is $45? What are you going to do? You know, that's a problem. That's a problem across the board. It doesn't matter who you are. So they need to knock that crap off.
Xmas said, even right now in Ohio, it's $16 for chicken. So like prices everywhere are going up. I mean, beef. I read an article the other day. I think it's on our Instagram story. They're projecting somewhere around $50 for a pound of beef at some point here.
Dude, that's crazy. Well, see, I guess I'm fortunate because the state I live in, we're one of the leading beef and dairy producers for the country. And prices are kept nice and low for us. So I'm happy about that. We got a pretty decent pork industry here too, and some chickens. And then I've been seeing farmers move to sheep as well. We even have a couple of like reindeer farms and stuff here now, again, which is cool. But yeah, we have, yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. $16 for chicken. That's crazy. I guess we have it pretty good here because of our farming, our agriculture industry here. So I guess I'm lucky in that regard. So I feel lucky there. I'm happy about that because it's not, I mean, I've noticed my grocery bill has gone up a bit, but not as bad as other places, and with COLA adjustment and everything else, it's just harder and harder, especially for people like on the coasts and in other places where the crop agriculture side of things and even livestock is very difficult, especially down in the south, the southwest. It's a lot more difficult down there. Plus with water shortages. So
water for geez. My buddy lives in Jersey, right? And he went into the grocery store the other day, bought 3 bags of groceries, $350. 350 fucking bucks for three and a half bags of groceries.
Yeah. I went a little overboard on my last grocery trip, but I ended up paying about $530 for my load of groceries that I bought. Now, granted, that's going to last me a while, and I always buy extra whenever I go to the grocery store of like dry goods and shelf stable stuff. So that, failing to plan is planning to fail, but yeah, I noticed the price went up, a little bit, and I was like, ooh, okay. So that wasn't fun. But yeah, no. So we really need to nip some things in the bud to get it back to that level.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
funny because Ed loves steak. You guys
oh,
know me and Ed went out a couple of times. The guy could eat fucking steak every day of his life, and he's
that's
saying
what's up.
it's hurting
Carnivore,
him.
man. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I know you're in good company. Me and DJ like steaks too. Me and DJ have gone out for some steaks too, man. It's what I like.
Oh, yeah. I was happy with that Outback one, man. That
It's
was good.
surprisingly very good, actually. Yeah,
Good. Yeah. Yeah, and
yeah.
I'm
Gone
happy.
up
Beef isn't that
60%
expensive up here still yet. So
across the board in Canada. 60%, DJ.
I haven't noticed that much of an increase here, but I believe it. I believe it, especially when it has to be transported and to other places, and because that's factored in the cost is transportation costs. So
Well,
that just
what else is going up right now is, speaking of South America, is coffee, because I mean that's a very climate specific crop, and if it's off a couple of degrees, it'll ruin your whole crop. So let's get into South America and talk
sure.
about what's going on over there.
Yeah. In Africa too, Africa and South America are really the only places that grow coffee beans. A little bit in Southeast Asia, but more so in those places. But with South America, I mean, there's issues all over the place. The civil unrest in Colombia has exploded. It's bad there right now, unfortunately. And the aggression of the FARC guerrillas, the major communist opposition rebel force in Colombia, has basically violated the ceasefire agreement that they've had with the Colombian government for a couple of years now, and they've stepped up the fighting. Venezuela, obviously, huge mass famine, total totalitarian control. Just bad from what we can glean from anything coming out of Venezuela. It's bad, even though the Biden administration is asking Venezuela for oil, which is kind of ridiculous when we have other means to not put money in their pockets and get our oil for ourselves. Big issue there too. Coffee industry, yes, it's a problem. There's been a lot of crop death because of some of the environmental and temperature factors and things like that. What was another thing that I saw fairly recent? Something was going on in Argentina. I can't quite remember what though.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, I can't remember what though. I mean, they're fairly stable, but awesome food too. Their beef industry is actually pretty good. They have a pretty good beef industry down there.
And they got cowboys out there too.
Yep, they do. They do.
People don't know that there's legit cowboys out there.
Legit, all over South and Central America. Yeah. There's cowboys all over the place. Tourism.
You know what else they got in Argentina? Nazis.
Yeah, those insular enclaves from all the Third Reich expats that established there. Yeah, there's those insular.
I got a buddy, he's Argentinian, and he says, Will, you'd fit right in Argentina. I go, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't even speak Spanish, bro. He goes, no, but you look like a fucking Nazi. He said, you'd fit right in.
No, and there's communities down there that there's, I think it's something like 15% of all Argentinians speak German.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's good for me. Ich kann I could get along just fine down there, but as a tourist, you're fine there. And with tourism too, the GDP for Chile and Peru has actually been pretty good. So that's good, because that's a big part of their GDP is tourism. All those hippies going down to take ayahuasca and all that stuff, down there. But just Machu Picchu and the Andes Mountains and everything else with mountaineering expeditions and all that stuff. It's been fairly good despite all of the travel issues and travel restrictions, which is still an issue for me. That has been a problem. So there was a problem there, but it's starting to pick up again for those countries in particular, which is good. And then you look at Ecuador, which is a major export of mangoes. They're doing fairly decent, along with a couple other exports. And I see you've got an alpaca in the background there and everything.
What?
The alpaca.
Oh my gosh! I didn't know it was there.
Yeah, alpaca and llama wool exports have been doing pretty well, actually. They haven't been seeing a lot of issues there, so that's good. Really, it just comes down to when it comes to South America, some of the countries, El Salvador, Colombia, Venezuela, having civil unrest issues and elevated crime issues. Brazil too, they always have a crime issue. Um, Colombia has also seen an increase in the cocaine production in the jungles again, working with because of the cartel influence and everything. Um, kind of creeping back in there, and then some of the other countries as well, especially that have an easy connection to the South America channel. So yeah, that issue's been going on too. And with Central and South America, obviously there's a lot of issues with Central America too. Cartel issues, they've been escalating. You have the mass migration issues, a lot of economic instability and problems, crime, and a lot of economic instability and crime in Honduras, economic instability in Guatemala. Nicaragua is doing some weird stuff with their government and kind of insular with them. They don't have much of they don't have a very open or friendly traveler or immigration connection to the US at all through Nicaragua. And there's some issues in Panama too. There's some unrest in Panama going on. And actually a lot of the American expats living down there, there were some people being targeted by criminal enterprise. And they're having some infrastructure issues and things like that. I remember the Panama Canal was down for a couple of weeks because they found some issues with the lock system. So they had to do some repairs and things, and that affects commerce, that affects the economy globally. Because if a ship doesn't wait there to get through the canal, where do they have to go? All the way around South America. And that's a problem. Is that
around Cape Horn like the old days?
Tax on a couple of weeks, you know. So, and I mean, you know, if perishable goods aren't in refrigerated units, I mean, they're spoiled by the time they get there. Then, so Panama Canal is vital, just as the Suez Canal and others are vital. And the maintenance of that was an issue apart from the other infrastructure issues that Panama is having right now. I already talked about Mexico, you know, cartel issues, a lot of typical issues going on there.
Well, didn't you see the other day? Didn't they? Was it Mexico City? The fucking cartel shut down the whole damn city.
Pretty much, yeah. There was a pretty substantial gun battle that was going on. And it was kind of just kicking off all over the place. Yeah. Normally you see that in places like Juarez, but Mexico City, I mean, you don't see that too often. In that, I mean, Mexico City is a mega city.
It's a very
massive.
Yeah,
massive.
And, you know, it's funny because so many Americans are now moving to Mexico City, and guess what the Mexicans are saying? Get out! We don't want you here. Place. It's just fucking hilarious to me how, hey, shoes on the other foot now, isn't it? Maybe I'll move down a little bit just to be a thorn in their fucking side.
Yeah. A lot of Californians moving down to Tijuana.
Nobody wants the Californians.
Yeah, they're moving down. Yeah, they're moving down to Tijuana because they save a lot of money because it's so damn near impossible to afford living in California now.
And you know the fucking funny part about it? It's probably a little bit safer than LA.
Some places more than others, yes.
Maybe. You never know, man. LA's some of our guys can tell you LA's probably pretty rough.
Oh yeah. But I mean, some parts of Tijuana, I mean, that's new generation Jalisco cartel and stuff. That they're the major player and they're fighting the Sinaloa cartel. Them and Sinaloa are the major players that control Tijuana. The mostly northern and gated communities of Tijuana, where a lot of Americans are moving to, are the safe areas. The rest of the area outside of Tijuana is pretty shady, and there's still a lot of kidnapping and murder going on there. Juarez and Jalisco and a couple of other places are still a little worse off, but it's not great there.
Fucking Mexico, man. That's not a place I really want to go, to be honest with you, at all, ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
TJ, yeah, Tijuana is pretty crazy right now, man. I mean, the cartel wars going on, not just against each other, but also the Mexican government. I mean, it's up there right now. It's almost not quite, but it's almost as bad as what we saw in like 2008 to 2013 area when I was down there on and off quite a bit. That was the worst time to be down there. It was the most dangerous for foreigners by far. And the cartel wars were just in full swing. Um,
Uh, Eximus also asked about Guyana.
oh yeah, honestly, I haven't heard too much out of Guyana, although I do have a friend who's Guyanese, and she goes back and forth from she lives in down in Florida, goes back and forth. So something going on with their government. There's some serious corruption going on in the Guyanese government. And it's funny because there's French military bases. Foreign Legion has their jungle warfare school in Guyana. Um,
Our
and
friend spent several months down there.
yep, yep.
Uh,
I know a couple of guys have been down there too. But yeah, no, there's a big corruption issues, and I mean that goes for several of the South and Central American governments. Unfortunately, is there's just a lot of corruption, poor management of their resources and infrastructure and everything else. That was one of the issues with Ecuador too, was their government wasn't really there were a little bit of corruption going on there too. Um, but
you know what I heard? Speaking of the French and the French Foreign Legion, I heard they're actually starting to pull out of Mali.
yeah, well, it wasn't just the French Legion there. There's some standard French military units there too. I forget which ones exactly. I think one of their Fusilier units and some of the others were there. They have started to scale back a little bit, but NATO forces are moving in. Or not NATO, UN forces. My mistake. Correction. UN forces are moving in. A lot of localized African Union and UN forces are moving into the area to help combat the terrorist issue going on there, which is a direct issue that's also affecting Chad and Niger and those places. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but France. Yeah, France always kind of does their thing, They just kind of
Yeah,
do their own thing. So, but I mean, they're focusing on Ukraine right now and stuff with providing them a lot of logistical support and things like that. And also the French military, they retired the FAMAS rifle. They're fully moving over to M4 or AR platform style rifles.
Yeah,
So, yeah, big contract with H&K for like 416s and other stuff. So they went Gucci with it. But they're
Dan's
all
been
getting
posting a lot on his private Instagram account of his new toys that he's playing with in the Foreign Legion. Man, these H&K rifles are fucking sexy, bro.
They're nice. They're really nice. Yeah, I mean that's a flex on the poorest thing, man. Because I mean in H&K 416, I mean that's easily what $3,000 rifle,
Man, I might have to sell some stocks, bro.
I mean, there's plenty of other I would honestly prefer an LWRC over an H&K. LWRCI rifles are fantastic. And they cost less. They're piston guns too, but they make DI line guns too, but they're known for their piston guns because they just run.
You know what's on my list? My next toy is I really want an M1 Garand.
Dude, yeah, I've been itching to get an old Milsurp gun. I have a modern like hunting bolt gun. I have a Tika, a Finnish made Tika 308 bolt gun, but I want an old Milsurp gun. And I was looking at a Swedish M48 Mauser carbine. So I'm trying to find one of those because they're just sexy and really, really high quality bolt guns, man. That or I wouldn't mind a Lee Enfield.
I got a Lee Enfield, man. It's pretty cool. It's fun.
Amazing action on those rifles. I really like them too. I've shot them before, but they're really hard to find right now. And the ones that I have found, like the wood was water damaged or whatever. And it was like, yeah, I can't buy this.
Oh, you know what my most recent purchase was? Oh man, we're gonna get into guns here. got this nice little bad boy. Anyway, I shouldn't do that because YouTube doesn't like that, but
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm
I gotta
I've been
protect
shooting
myself
my
from this guy over here.
yeah, right.
The
I've been
alpaca,
shooting
not
my
DJ.
yeah, I've been shooting my Zasava ZPEP M70 Serbian made AK quite a bit lately.
Nice,
Oh,
nice.
nicest AK I've ever shot, man. I love it. Um, yeah, so good, so good.
Oh
It,
man, we
it's
can talk
twitchy.
about guns all day. We'll have to.
I know
So
it.
actually, it's funny because guys, DJ and I are going to be starting to do a new thing, Q&A with all about gun shit,
Yeah,
and we're going to be posting it up like, and it's going to probably be like a couple minutes each piece, right? We won't like take a bunch of your time, but if you guys have any questions for DJ specifically, because he's the gun dude, I'm the martial arts guy. If you got any questions about like weird gun shit for DJ, either send me an email or like comment on the videos or whatever, and we'll get to that question. And it's
yeah,
gonna be oddball questions. Like, for example, will a hollow point, penetrate through a corridor or like whatever weird shit you think about. Those are the questions we want. We're gonna be doing that. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
yep, yep. And we've talked about this. Yeah, we're gonna do it in the unique GFS way because there are other companies and channels that cover some of those topics, but they do it their way or in a certain way. We want to cover some of the other angles based on our experiences, which are unique. Everyone's is unique from the other in large. So that's how we're going to apply answering those questions and covering various topics. So I'm really looking forward to starting that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's funny you guys say that about the slide bite. I got something, probably can't see it anymore, right here on my hand. Fucking man. I'm gonna do that with a band-aid from now on.
yeah,
Yeah.
put a little just put like some of that like medical like self cling wrap.
Yeah, yeah.
Just put some of that or like some of that like sports rock tape. Just put a
Yeah,
little bit of
yeah.
that over there. If it continues to be an issue and you're not comfortable changing your grip and stuff. We do have a couple of questions here. Well, Eximius, yeah, HEK or Gucci goes, they are nice. They are nice. Ed, how do you like 300 blackout compared to 556? I don't own a 300 blackout. I've shot them. Much prefer 556 or 762 by 39, which I would consider a little bit more comparable to 300 blackout over 556. But I would still take old Russian 762 by 39 over 300 blackout. It's a good round. 300 blackout's a good round. Great home defense round. I mean, you could reach out to targets 350 meters, no problem. It's a good round. If that's what you want to run it. It's a little bit of a niche caliber, but there's enough of a broad market out there. You have no problem finding barrels, uppers, lowers, mags, whatever, and it takes 5.56 mags. So no problem with that.
My whole thing about the 300 blackout, man, is like, that's the only thing is they're cool. I've shot them. They're fun, but it's such a niche round. Like, if you're running 300 blackout, you got to carry a lot of 300 blackout with you, assuming you're actually going to combat or something, right?
And it's heavier than 5.56.
So like, yeah, I mean, other than like the noise level and the ballistics, like shit like that, like unless you're like super special ops, I feel like you'd be way better off running, like DJ said, 7.62 by 39 or 5.56.
Yeah. Yep. And as the 300 blackout, something like 50% of all the ammo made for 300 blackout is all subsonic stuff because it's one of those calibers that is just people run a can with it or a suppressor. People run a can with it. So that's where it really makes its mark is it was designed for that more so. They make supersonic rounds for it, but it's much more a subsonic platform. That's a big takeaway from that too. Less loud and concussive depends on the ammo. And then again, if you're using a can or not, which 300 blackout is more of a can suppressor platform.
My buddy out here, he's got all his paperwork. He's got this nice little SBR, and he's running the 300 blackout subsonic shit with a can. And he had it in an indoor range the other day. We were shooting it. And it was fucking dope, man. It was.
Yeah, you don't need ear pro. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
It's so quiet. Yeah. And I like it for that. It's a lot of fun for that. It's a lot of fun to shoot. And again, great home defense round, close range hunting round. It's perfect for that too, actually. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun. I mean, anything with a can can be fun too. So with the right ammo.
Yo, actually, here's a question for you, DJ. So, you know how Bond always throws a silencer onto his PPK?
Yeah.
Do you have to get a whole new barrel that's threaded in order to do that?
Yeah, it has to be a threaded barrel in order to install a can, or a
Oh.
specialized muzzle device that you can then connect a can onto. But that's more common for rifles.
Okay.
Like
Can you-
Surefire and SIG and all that make flash hider and muzzle devices that you just then like clip or ratchet a suppressor onto instead of having to thread a suppressor onto a raw barrel. It's different for pistols. Usually you have to get a pistol that's threaded and then get a suppressor to thread on the barrel. So
Now, if I wanted, could I change out my barrel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to put a threaded barrel on there, yeah, you just have to order a different barrel. And there's a couple of manufacturers even still for PPQs and PPKs and all that, apart from Walther, that make really good threaded barrels. And then with like a lot of your conventional guns, Glock, SIG, whatever, there's a slew, apart from, their in-house production, there's a slew of outside companies that make really good alternative barrels and comped barrels and comp slides and everything else to make them all fancy and all that stuff. So
I had to put my paperwork in.
yeah, you do. It's gonna take a while, man. It's
heard
gonna
it's
take a
taking-
while
It's
to
like
get a
taking like a
can.
year and a half right now, I heard.
Yep. Well, yeah, about 9 months to a year right now, from what I've
Now,
heard.
does that go to the state or the feds?
That's federal.
Federal. Okay.
Depending on the state you're in, you could have an additional state tax. I believe that's how it is in California. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, the nice thing is in Texas, if you buy a Texas-made suppressor, you don't got to do shit. So
Oh, really?
yeah, if you're a Texas resident and you buy a Texas-made suppressor, you don't have to do anything. They told the government to go take a long walk off a
Hey.
short pier.
Huh.
But yes, otherwise it's all the federal stuff, and it's nice because a lot of at least the tactical store, gun store near me, they just have a kiosk. It's really easy to do to submit the form and pay the $200 tax stamp to do it. Not that you should have to, but
Right.
they've made it easy. So, and then you just play the waiting game. So, I mean, yeah. And then your suppressors, you can pay for your suppressor then, but it's on hold until the paperwork clears. So
Now, do you have to get a tax stamp for each suppressor you buy?
I believe so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never bought a can personally, but I believe that's how that works. Yeah. Yeah. You have to do a tax stamp for each can. And then just like with getting the special SOTs or whatever forms and all that for tax stamps for each automatic weapon or lower or whatever that you have, it's a tax stamp for each of them too.
I was looking at this pre-86 M16 the other day, man. And I think it was like $46,000 or some shit like that.
Oh yeah. Some of those OG or some of like the second gen stuff, man. I mean, people just wanted to throw them away back in the day, but now, because the retro aesthetic is coming back and everything, and everybody wants them. They're actually pretty decent rifles, especially those from the 80s and stuff. It's you're paying for it. You're paying for it. I know guns.com has a Modus for sale.
Oh, really?
M250 cal, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
they've
wow.
got a Browning M2 for sale.
Wow.
It's now, I believe it's been converted to semi, which is crap, but it could be converted back if you go through the right process and tax stamps and everything. But it's just the fact that they're selling an M2 and it's, I think it was like $25,000. I was like,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Oh, man. Yeah, my buddy's got one of those. I don't even know what it's called. M203, but it's like a civilian version, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you like clips onto the bottom of your AR and you can shoot like flares or whatever with it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Spikes Tactical is one of the main companies that makes them, and it's actually a 37 millimeter launcher instead of a 40 millimeter launcher. They do have a 40 millimeter variant that they make, But yeah, it's you just pick rail or usually you have to M-lock. If you're using M-lock, you have to M-lock a pick rail on there and then just mounts on the pick rail. And then you have a flare launcher. So when you're launching anything that isn't flare or a couple of other types of rounds, it then has to be registered with the ATF as a destructive device.
Right.
So then you have to go through that whole tax stamp process, and it's crap. So you can get them as a civilian, but you're very limited on how you can use them legally. So
I was at Tactical Response. We were doing small unit tactics, and we actually used that thing to kick off one of our ambushes. No, it was a direct action, and that was pretty cool, man. Because it was thump,
yep.
And then fucking, I won't say what came out the other end, but it was thump, and then
nice.
It was fun.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, man. I mean, I had a 203 on my M16 and my M4s when I was in the Army. I was a rifleman / marksman and grenadier. So,
Cool.
Man, they were fun. I miss having one of those. I wish I could get one. I can't shoot anything fun out of it. So what's the point?
Yes, you got John saying he had one of those in 87, and then he loved to shoot the saw as well.
Hell yeah.
Tommy Gunn says America.
Hell yeah.
Only in America, you know.
There's a couple of things here. 6.5 by 55. Yeah, 6.5 Swede. You have 2 Swedes, man, Tommy. If you weren't in Canada, man, I would. If you were willing to sell one, I would, but you're it's a little bit harder, all that ITAR shit and everything else can't do it. But I'm glad you have them. Hold on to them.
Tommy Gunn's got like everything.
Love them fondly.
Yeah, I like Tommy Gunn. He's always saying, buy fucking bullets, beans, and band-aids and gold, man. It's true.
What is this? Shoot IDPA and reload. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a good way to do it, man.
I'll be right back, guys.
Sure. Like 5.7. Yeah, 5.7's fun. That's a fun little cartridge. Eximius. Very fast moving cartridge. Fun little cartridge though. Yeah. Tommy gun 223, carry a lot of ammo with less weight. Yep, absolutely. Cannon with a booster. Yep. Throw the barrels. Ed, do I have any experience with linear compensators? A little. Not too terribly much though. A lot of they're pretty sweet. My buddy has one on his 450 Bushmaster AR-10. That thing's a monster. A lot of fun to shoot. They're all right. I mean, I don't really see that much of a difference than other compensators or the biggest addition, I wouldn't call it a compensator though, but a Halbach device for like an FAL or an R1 or an L1A1. That one makes a big difference when it comes to like recoil and things like that. The other ones, I don't really notice that much of a difference between all of them. So it's really just a preference at that point. So, I mean, get what you like, when it comes to that. Yeah. I'm familiar. Yeah. The linear compensators. I'm just kind of going back in the comments here a little bit.
Oh man.
Had in the Army 87. Hell yeah. Carl G was my favorite. Oh, dude. Carl Gustav recoilless rifles, so much fun. Those are sweet too. I got to shoot one a couple of times. I shot AT4s and the updated laws a lot more than the Carl Gustav, but I like the Gustav. FN sells us all for 10,000 semi. Yeah, they do. I don't really see the point in it. I mean, kind of sucks, but it's sweet that they have the option for the civilian market now, even though it's, flexing on the pores.
DJ, how was shooting those AT4s, man?
AT4 was sweet. AT4 was a lot of fun. They're not terribly accurate. Newer models are more accurate than the older ones. And then for trainer AT4s, it's actually set up where you fire a 9mm pistol tracer round out of it for training and practice. So you get this arc on it to kind of simulate what the round does. I was pretty good with them. but again, the actual rockets aren't terribly accurate. A lot of the time, you kind of have to aim a little low, just because otherwise they're going to go flying over your intended target, and that's no bueno. But no, they're fun. They're fun, man. It's just boom, and just it goes.
Gotta be such an
Yeah,
awesome feeling.
designed by the Swedes. So the AT4, you know,
Sweet
it's
shit.
yeah, they
Sweet
did.
shit to me, so
Yeah, they did a good job with the design of that, all alongside the Carl Gustav. But newer models are more accurate than the old ones, and they have updated models of the M72, the Law, the old
yeah.
school rocket launcher for Vietnam. So use those a couple of times, the updated versions of them, and some of those are actually seeing their way into Ukraine too, which is cool. Good little rocket, man. That's those things move.
Maximus, what's the plan for the fall? You mean the coming fall or the coming fall? Or the coming fall of America? Which one?
The fall or autumn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what's coming up in the fall, and for me at least, is we got one Shepherd coming up the fall semester, and then in the winter we got Winter Forge. And DJ, I've been debating this all day today. I think I might go through Winter Forge again, bro.
Man, I don't know. To pay how much I did to just be miserable in those
I know.
Bond rec shelters, man.
Oh.
I mean, equipment wise, I have better boots for it this time, so that would
Yeah.
not be an issue. And I was comfortable otherwise, besides that failure of my own bullshit. But
I bought the Equix system, like the thick ass shit. So might have to do it, man. I heard it's gonna be even longer this time. So
yeah, they said they wanted to put it out to what, 72 hours or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty dope. I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but it's got to be a different outdoor shelter. It's got to be a different shelter. I will not stay in a Von Rec again. I would rather do a one man,
Yeah.
just a one man over. I would rather do that and just have us
You're
oriented.
better off just fucking sleeping in the snow. Those Von Rex make it more miserable with the fucking fire and shit, man. Like,
Yeah, they do. They do. And I mean, you really don't have any protection from above. You don't.
No.
And
no, I don't see what the point is at all. For guys at home, the Von Rex shelter, I could bother to throw it up, but it's basically, DJ, can you describe it for us?
so it's basically you're taking 4 old school shelter halves and you're creating a 4-sided open top shelter that you then kind of position and sleep under the angled sides of the shelter, and you have like 1 or 2 corners open to get in and out. And then in the middle of it, being open top, in the middle of it, we make a Dakota fire pit. So you dig down, you dig a vent, you dig down, you dig a venting hole, and then you make a fire down in the ground to provide heat and cooking and everything else for that shelter. One of the worst shelter designs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Fair.
awful. I would rather do it where 1 or 2 man, where you do shelter halves, or just 1 man, A-frame style shelter setup with a single opening, and orient them around a central fire pit area, with a point, a simple point of ingress and egress out of that little shelter circle. That's a lot more practical and efficient and safe for us than a Von Rec. And I've slept out in the open in a bivy system and everything, and I've got my bivy bag and everything, and I've done that, and I have the 3-piece military style sleep system, but for extreme colds like that, what I do instead is I take the bivy bag and then I use a singular extreme cold weather, just off the shelf camping sleeping bag, one that's rated for like -20, -30 or whatever. Plenty warm in that, and it has a mummy just like the bivy bag over, so you're very well protected. I do that instead because it saves space. Yeah, it's just easier that way because it saves some space and some weight than having to do a full 3-piece system.
I had the 3-piece system and I was still fucking freezing.
Oh, really? I was
It
comfy.
was fucking terrible. I hated it. Well, you know what? I was fine from like here down.
Yeah.
And then my fucking face was just like frozen the whole night.
Yep. And that's the thing. You usually you have to end up wearing like, I wouldn't say a balaclava, but like a 3-hole ski mask.
I'm bringing a ski mask, man. That's it. I have to have one now.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend wearing, because yeah, your face can still be a little exposed. I mean, you could do a balaclava too, but that can affect breathing a little bit, especially if it frosts over.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's
Fucking winter warfare sucks. I hate it.
yep, it's rough, dude. But up here, I love it. As long as you don't have some kind of catastrophic failure with a piece of equipment. In that case, it was my boots, because I didn't properly check them to make sure there wasn't any gaps, a failure of glue for the actual the bottom of the sole of the boot into the boot, because they were leather boots. And then there was a couple of spots on them that I usually wax or otherwise put a protective layer on to waterproof them and help insulate them. And some of the waxed spots didn't take as well as I normally do it, so that kind of fucked it up. And
You know what
that's
I'm
why I
gonna
had,
find, man? I'm gonna find a cheap pair of Mickey Mouse boots.
yeah, there you go. I've switched back over to normally I use Merrill Moab Gore-Tex boots.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Fucking yeah, Merrill make good shit,
yeah,
man.
yeah. And then the Gore-Tex, so waterproof, insulating, and everything. They're perfect for winter. Just have a good pair of socks, and yeah, it's
Couple pairs of socks for sure in your kit. Yeah.
yep, yep.
And I mean, fuck, man, like getting your feet wet sucks, especially in cold weather like that. But the whole experience sucks and it drains you so much. Like, and obviously Tommy Gunn knows this better than you and I, because this guy was like a winter warfare specialist. But like,
Yeah.
you can't even fight like the way that you could in the other 3 seasons. It's just like fucking miserable.
It's
Just really
it is, especially having to pull guard and everything else, and then you're just sitting there static or whatever, and you're if you dress right, you won't be cold per se, but it still just sucks. Um,
sucks.
a lot of winter warfare ends up being a lot of long range movements and then ambushes and raids and then getting the fuck out of there so you can go warm up, and
Yeah.
get some hot chow and stuff. It's just not fun.
It's funny
Um,
how much that hot shower really just does like boost your spirits. It
oh
really,
yeah.
really does.
Same with eating like a sugar packet or some chocolate before going to
Yeah.
bed, like what Tyler was telling the guys and stuff. It's huge. It's huge. Those little things, and just keeping hot water, on standby and everything. I mean, that's it's a game changer for sure.
Tommy, it's funny you say that, man, because I've had that problem for like a few times I've been out in the field now. My fucking sleeping bag goes up to like here, and it's supposed to have that nice little head cover, right? But like I'm a little bit I'm like an inch too fucking tall for it. And I'm always just like, I'm like fine from here down, and then the rest of me is cold. It sucks. I'm
It's
gonna
see,
have to
that's
find like a tall person sleeping bag.
Yep. Yeah, and that's sometimes the aftermarket, just your camping, cold weather or mountaineering sleeping bags are a better option than to go with like the 3-piece system if you're tall or whatever. I
Do they
mean,
make like tall people sleeping bags?
yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, they do. You can check like Cabela's website. Otherwise, like some of the manufacturers or the retail direct on their websites and stuff, just kind of look through, and yeah, they're out there. It's there's some really good options for aftermarket stuff. And I mean the 3-piece system is tried and true, but depending on the season and everything, if I could save some weight and some space by turning it into a 2-component sleep system, as necessary, I'm going to,
Well,
and
that's
like,
the problem. Those 3-piece systems is they're like this fucking big, and then you
Yep.
gotta like either clip it onto your bag or
Yep.
like it just takes up a lot of space.
Yep. A lot of the time I just end up lashing it on the outside of my pack because it doesn't fit on the inside with all the extra stuff you need for winter environments and things like that. So it's just like,
Fucking problem with winter warfare, man, is like you end up with a pack that's like this fucking big, but you need everything that's in there. Yeah, right.
I upgraded my pack. I got a Tasmanian Tiger long range raid. I think it's the Mark II. A lot of space in that thing. I can carry everything I need and then some. and it's got Molly all over the outside. So I put extra pouches on there so I can carry even more while being cognizant of weight, weight mitigation and things. But everything I would need to carry, I can carry in that one pack, which is awesome.
I mean, I don't like carrying weight, right? It slows me down. It like
It
makes
sucks.
me,
It
yeah.
sucks.
So
You know,
I will only take what I know I need and nothing else. But I'm one of those guys. But like, it works. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, at the
yeah,
same point, you might need an extra tool or you might need like an extra layer of clothing. And if you don't have that, that can also be, kind of a mission critical thing too. So it's a fine
absolutely.
balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've like in that pack, I've got extra multi-tool. I've got my tree saw, my folding tree saw. I've got, a bunch of that stuff. Always have extra tent stakes and 550 line and all that, like, yeah, just all that extra stuff. I have like 3 or 4 different methods of fire starting in that thing, and for cooking and everything, apart from the S-bit, and all that. Like I got a jet boil too, but having to carry extra cans of fuel for a jet boil is a huge pain in the ass.
Yep.
So I just stick to an S-bit stove with fuel tabs and then alternate means for starting fires and things like that. So,
Well,
you
that's the
know,
nice thing about modern winter warfare is, if you work your logistics right, you'll have a mule to run shit out to you, hopefully, or a pickup truck or something, hopefully.
ideally, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, like you look at Ukraine and stuff, and that was classic winter warfare for you, but they did have supply lines bringing shit up to the guys, generally speaking. So, and
yeah,
unless you're doing what we were doing, which was more special forces, small unit tactics type stuff,
yeah.
then you might not have that luxury. But
No, yeah, and I mean, look at the Minuteman community, and there's a great circle of people. I've been talking to a lot of them, whether it's Risky Krisky, Black Dissident, Modern Minuteman, Alpha Charlie Concepts, John with UW Gear, all those people, great, bringing a lot of different great things to the table and stuff. And there is a consensus that, hey, if something happens here domestically and Minuteman mode happens, you really don't have any logistical support outside of your circle. You're not going to have military logistical support. In large, you're probably not going to be able to get access to a hospital even, because that's going to be a major point, a site of control for adversarial forces. And they're going to be overwhelmed anyway if a major event happens in those kinds of situations. So when it comes
that's
to,
why the militias are so important. I mean,
yeah,
Michigan militia, various state militias like that will become the point of contact.
yep, yep. And even then, their logistics are limited. So
Yeah.
you really have to be up to snuff. Again, failing to plan is planning to fail. So individually, and then for your small unit tactics, your little team, you need to be logistically up to snuff to be able to support yourself for a little while, and then be resourceful enough and have the skills to garner additional resources as you're able and where you can along the way for however long that takes and draws out. So
Logistics
it's a
is a
big
big
thing. It's a
part.
very,
Yeah. Yeah.
very complex thing. Um,
Ed, is our tent separate? So the way that we were doing it at Winter Warfare was, or at SNS was, we just had shelter halves, right? So basically tarps, and we would throw those together. A guy would take 3 shelter halves, and the other guy would take 3, and you would kind of put it together to make this like oval
it was
octagon
like a
type shape.
square. It was more
Yeah,
like a trapezoid kind of, yeah. So
trapezoid, right?
yeah, so everyone had a shelter half, and 2 shelter halves make a general 2-man A-frame style shelter in old school military training. And that stuff was old kit that we were using in that training. So what you do with Von Rek is you take 4 of them, so 4 men with each with a shelter half, and make a full Von Rek shelter, and then the 4 of you stay in there. Not ideal, not a lot of space in it. Sucks because it's open top. You're exposed to the elements. It's just not a great one.
No, and the wood that we were using was wet, right? So the
It
smoke
got wet,
filled the
yeah.
whole shelter, and it was
Yeah.
terrible.
And it sucked because I had gone down the day early to do the work detail with the SNS guys to go cut wood and everything. And we had gotten a bunch of dry wood, but then it rained and then snowed. and we had covered it with a tarp, but water still got under and everything got wet as far as the wood went. So we got smoked out pretty hard. That was bad.
Now, we did have our command post, which
Yeah.
was an actual tent, like a big, like what, like 10-man tent?
Yeah, that was like a 10, 12 man Arctic tent. I
Yeah,
forget.
yeah.
It was like an original like 50s design one. And
And
they
they had
had
an actual heater in that, which was really nice. And you would walk in, it would be so toasty. And you'd have to actually, like, you'd literally have to go in there to warm up every now and again.
yeah, I had to dry my boots out in there. Yeah. It was they were using diesel drip uh
Mhm.
stove system. Which was really efficient actually. I was very impressed with that. I
But
think
yeah, I
that's
mean,
the
you'll
only
learn
time
that.
I've ever seen that used actually. So
It was, yeah, no, me too. It was cool. You'll learn that though in winter warfare training is that you give up a lot of your stealth for surviving, right? So like you'll actually make fires. Like generally in the field, you never fucking make a fire. That's like a no-no, but you have to. And the other side has to as well. So it's a
Yep.
very slow, bogged down type of fighting. It's not like in the spring, fall, and summer where it's, one party, another party, they're hiding out and they're raiding each other and this and that. It's like it's almost more World War I-esque, right? Where it's like we're both here, we almost know where each other are, kind of, and maybe even exactly, and we're just gonna come together and fight. We're gonna separate, we're gonna come together and fight. And it's more like that. It's more like controlling lines of scrimmage.
yep, like what happened in the early months of Ukraine because it was still winter when it
Exactly.
happened,
Exactly.
And it's the same thing. Yeah, everybody, you're all gonna make a fire, and you just kind of have this. You're still gonna go out and do your patrols and your recce's and everything, and getting some ticks here and there, troops in contact ticks. You're gonna get in a little bit of direct action here and there, but it's just that kind of understanding that you're gonna have to do what you have to do to survive. So yeah. And Ed said use baby wipes for an improvised shower. Yes, alcohol
Yeah.
with aloe,
Yeah.
so your skin doesn't dry out too much from the alcohol. Alcohol with aloe in extreme cold weather, because alcohol has a much lower freezing point than water does. Most baby wipes and stuff are water based and they will freeze. So you need to use alcohol based ones because they don't freeze. They'll be cold, but they won't freeze. But I recommend either having additional aloe or some kind of lotion with you that won't freeze, or getting alcohol sanitary wipes with aloe on them to help you from keeping your skin from drying out, because that's a common thing in winter. Your skin will dry out really bad.
Yeah.
And you need to hydrate and everything else. And you're right, everything else with patrolling and everything, your body works twice as hard because of the conditions. It's
You're eating twice the calories, but you're not actually like getting a calorie surplus at all.
yeah, no, because you're burning it all. Even just sitting there, you're burning it because your body has to work harder to keep yourself warm. Aside from good thermal clothing and everything, you just have to work harder. And the cold, even with breathing, the cold sucks the heat out of your body. So you always have to keep your head covered and things like that. All the main points where heat leaves the body the most and everything, but even just breathing. So yeah. Yep.
And you can't sweat. You don't want to sweat too much.
Right.
Which is one of the most annoying things about patrolling, right? Is because you're in your base layer and then you got your waffle top and then you got your BDU and then you got your jacket. But when you go out to do a patrol, you actually want to delayer a lot so you don't sweat as much. Because if you sweat too much, you're gonna fucking catch hypothermia.
Yep. You'll
Yo,
freeze.
it's like
Yep.
it's a fucking work.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 there too, absolutely. And that's like when we were doing it out there, I kept it pretty simple. I just did like a wool sweater or one of my nice like aftermarket thermals, and then a rain shell over that because they insulate as well. They're not really breathable, tops, just because of the snow and everything, and then went from there. So I had pretty minimal layers on, and even then I got to the point a couple of times where I was starting to sweat a little bit, and I was like, okay, I got to open this up a little bit and kind of air it out a little bit, and then go from there. Dress in layers, but then you're gonna have to stop at some point and take layers off, or find another way to mitigate moisture buildup and overheating at the same time. It's a very it's it's a pendulum when it comes to winter activity and winter warfare and winter hunting and everything. So yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look at all the shit we learned, man. I mean, you knew a lot of this shit already, living where you live and being in the army, but you know, the shit I learned was invaluable. That's why I really think I'm gonna have to go through it one more time. I've forgotten all of the suck, and now I have to be reminded of it again.
Right, right. Well, and
Um,
imagine even like, in the region that you're in right now, and you go a little farther north, like into the mountains, you're doing some hiking or something. All of a sudden it snows, because it does snow quite a bit in those mountains still, and you're
I
stuck.
mean, that's the thing about living where I live out in the desert. I mean, you know, during the winters here, it's 60s, 70s during the day, but if you got to bug out, you got to go over across to another state. It's fucking cold, so
Yep.
you
Yep.
better be used to it, and you better
And
know how to react.
yep. And the further north you go, the more snow there'll be. So,
Yeah,
you just have to know how to deal with it. So now you do. And, it's, I do recommend, and I'm sure you do too. I do recommend anybody that wants to learn winter survival and warfare skills to definitely attend a course like Winter Forge with SNS Training Solutions. There's a couple of other organizations out there that do too. I know there's one up in Alaska. I know there's one out in Idaho. Um, there's a couple of other ones, but the one Shepherd and SNS one, I mean, it was great, apart from when it wasn't. So
yeah. Well, you're using the mile system as well, right? And that's a very unique thing to one
that
shepherd.
works.
It works. Yeah.
That works because
Yeah, that works. Right. Exactly. So, I mean, it's, in my opinion, a must for any citizen soldier or Minuteman out there. If you have not served in the military and experienced winter warfare training of some kind, or, FTXs during the winter, you'd be doing yourself a grave disservice by not attending one. Okay. Or one's all you need, but unless you're like crazy like me and DJ.
right. No, yeah, I recommend it. And even just the one shepherd courses. I mean, if you want to learn some basic warrior skills and all that, they're a great organization to go to. They really are.
Yeah.
And
1 week is all you really need to get started. So
yep, they'll get you up to snuff pretty quick. So they're good at what they do. And I'm glad that they have equipment that works. So, because I mean, our miles gear in the army rarely worked.
that's what I keep hearing, is that the Army's miles shit never fucking
they
works.
just did not maintain it. They just did not maintain it. It was just trash. So the fact that I think it was like the second time ever I got to use miles gear that actually worked, and it wasn't even with the military. And I was impressed. I was impressed with that. So they take care of their stuff, which I appreciate. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, right.
Desert does get bone chilling at night, Ed.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Does, man. Definitely does.
It does. It can get very cold at night. So you have to take those same precautions and at least have a proper sleep system with you, or a pair of thermals. Even if you're hiking around in 90, 100-degree heat during the day, guess what? You're going to have to put something on or start a fire to heat yourself up at night. So you need to do a desert course.
Yeah.
There's a couple of companies that do desert stuff, but not many.
Well, One Shepherd's going to be opening up their Charlie company at some point in southern Utah, I think.
Oh, perfect.
That's going to be really fucking cool. I mean, that's probably a couple of years away from happening, but I'm super stoked about that, because desert warfare is something I know very little about, but I obviously need to get up to snuff on that.
It's oh dude, I'll come down and train with you sometime for that, because that was the bread and butter of my training that I was in. Both in the military and contracting, was a lot of desert warfare stuff. Quite different from anything in Woodland or anything else.
I imagine, man. I mean, just the lack of defilade would be something to really keep in mind, I mean, obviously we've got mountains and stuff, but if you're actually out in the middle of fucking desert, like, there's no fucking defilade out there, man.
Yeah, nothing but scrub, if there's even scrub, yeah.
So your bread and butter, like bounding and shit, really becomes important, I would assume.
Yep. A lot of large movements and things like that with desert warfare, because you're easier to see, and you have to do things differently, because especially desert climates, much like winter climates, actually it's very easy to track people.
Yeah.
If there isn't a lot of like wind or things, but just the environmental factors of the ground and the sand and everything. Much like with snow, it's very easy to track somebody once those tracks are made. So, um,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
that's
also like the scorching fucking heat, man. Like you got to drink a lot of water and you got to
dude.
cover up, and it's
It did
like
not
the opposite suck of winter, I would assume.
kind of. I mean, and I talked about this in a video that I had put out on my channel about base layers and clothing based on the environment and the conditions that you're in. You wouldn't think it, but yeah, even in the desert, yeah, you still need to have something to cover you, whether even if it's thin, like a Nike Combat Pro Performance top, which I have a couple of those. They're thin, they ventilate, you can breathe and everything, but it helps protect you from the sun a little bit. But hydration is the biggest thing. It didn't matter how much we hydrated in Iraq. We were always pissing near orange. Like it was just crazy how much you sweat when you're working with a combat load. And it's a whole other ball game. It really is. And it's very dangerous. But any climate, any region is going to have its hazards like that. The jungle is very much like that too, because it is hot. Obviously, you have a forest, jungle and everything to your advantage, but also to contest with. But you've got the heat and humidity too, So heat factor, hydration, it doesn't matter where you are, hydration's a factor, no matter what. Winter, you got to
I mean,
hydrate. Desert, you gotta
I did a course out by Fort Polk, and this was a SUT slash tracking course over with John Hurth from
That's right.
Two group. And so this is where we did it in the same place where they would train guys right before they got sent to Vietnam, because the climate was pretty similar. And bro, the humidity out there, man, like I've never sweat so much in my fucking life. It was terrible. And then you got to worry about like heat rash and fucking jock itch and shit like that.
Yeah, jungle rot too, crotch rot and all that. Yeah, you got to look out for that. Yeah, I've been in Louisiana before, and at Fort Benning where I was stationed, that's southern Georgia, which is getting close. We have swamps there, and then I go down to Florida too and everything. So yeah, and then I've been to Central and South America and right on the equator and everything, So yeah, it's that's a whole other ball game too, that comes with its own issues. So light, quick drying clothing that ventilates well is definitely important for those. Your light athletic wear stuff, your Under Armour, Nike stuff and all that, that's great for those environments, because they dry quick and it's they keep you ventilated and everything, and you just got to do everything you can to stay cool and hydrated. Tommy gun, rain gear will keep you warm too. Yeah, it will. Rain shells, like I was using the Geo 7 camo system, and I just put in a camo effectiveness test video up, much like how Brent does his. And I was wearing my rain shell, which I wore at Winter Forge, and that it insulates. Yeah, because they don't breathe. So it insulates you. But you have to understand when you should open it up to ventilate, dry yourself out, and then keep going. Always looking for dead ground. Yeah, I mean, high ground and dead ground. Yeah, that's big, and trench foot. Yeah. Whether it's jungle, whether it's desert, whether it's winter, I mean, your feet are going to sweat, or your socks are going to get wet in some way. So you just got to stop and change them sometimes, whether it's back at your OP, whether it's out on a patrol, and you just take a mandatory stop so everybody can hydrate, change your socks, whatever it is, and that's a leadership thing as much as a medical thing, to monitor and keep track of your guys and everything, and as much as your self monitoring and everything. You need to make sure you change your socks and you got clean, dry socks on. The Brits, and who's in here that maybe served in the British military, the Brits do it where you've got like a couple of sets of your like daytime your operational stuff, and then when you go to lay down, you change it into dry stuff, and that one set of dry stuff is what you wear all the time when you sleep, and then you change back into the other stuff interchangeably when you give it time to dry and everything like that. That's one of the best models in my opinion. It works really well because then you're comfortable and you're dry when you're sleeping, and then you have something dry to change into in the morning that may be slightly dirty, but that's your operational stuff, but it's dry, and you switch back and forth, change between those and stuff. Tommy, you served in the British military? I guess Canadian. Yeah, you could serve in the British military. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's the way
you
to do
know.
it, man. I remember one time I was at One Shepherd. I was trapped in a fucking monsoon, and I was out there pulling security with my buddy Santiago, right? So I was the only one who brought a change of clothes, and we ended up there was all this fucking lightning going on, so we ended up falling back into this old barn. Okay, and that night I put my dry shit on. I can't tell you the feeling, how nice it was to
So
be
nice.
so dry. I mean, the morning we just went out and like got wet again, but it was like I felt like a king. It was amazing.
Yep.
I like that model, the way they do it.
Yeah, yeah, I like it too, and I've been doing it. I've been doing that for quite a while. Even started doing it in the leg end of the military service, but yeah, I've done it pretty much ever since then. It's the best model in my opinion. Um, you know, you're not sacrificing anything to have to bring extra clothing. You're just appropriating the clothing that you have accordingly. And yeah, no, it works super well. I dig it. Yeah, it does. It does. It makes you super happy, Tommy. It's good
It's
stuff.
funny the way that different it makes me super happy. It's funny the way that different militaries have, different ways that they operate. And even just like in Iraq, I don't know if you ever ran into any Brits, but from what I hear, they did things very differently over there, even just dealing with a local population.
Mhm.
They were a little nicer to them or something.
Yeah, much more conversational and diplomatic in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Very that typical British like cordiality, That's just how they are, whether it's dealing with their own or indigenous population, indige. That's just how they were, And I mean, we adopted that a little bit, if we could really vet and trust the indige forces that we were working with and stuff, like they were cool, and we treated them just like one of our own. But it's
I heard that the guys in Afghanistan who are working with the local Afghans, like a lot of the special forces types, I mean, those motherfuckers were savage and they were like awesome fighters. And I always hear how lucky they felt that they were to be able to serve with the Afghan troops or the ANA or whatever it was.
Yeah, the ANA commando forces and some of their special operations guys were fantastic fighters. They're fantastic guys. And I mean, some of them are still fighting because they went to the Panjshir and linked up with the resistance forces that are fighting right now. And another resistance force or two just formed as well. So there's a couple of Northern Alliance style resistance forces that are fighting the Taliban and ISIS right now. And then the Taliban are fighting them and the Taliban are fighting ISIS too. So, and then ISIS fighting everyone. So, the guys that were able to get out, cool. I know a lot of them want to be able to go back to their country and make it a better place, which is great, and yeah, they're great fighters, and the ones that are there fighting and everything, more power to them because we taught them well. So at least the ones that retained it and weren't total shitbags or working for the enemy, so.
Riding in Humvees fucking sucks, Ed.
So, and I believe it was Unsubscribed Podcast with Eli Double Tap and Donut Operator, Batty Streaves, and I think it was Bad Electrician. We're on, and Bad Electrician and Eli Double Tap were served in the Army. And they said it well because I agree with them. It sucks in the military application sense. The seats are not comfortable. There's no AC. And then early on too, we're pretty light skinned with our Humvees. They weren't up armored like the ones that you see now. That was a process. We had to Mad Max the shit out of them with our mechanics and welding and everything. They're not comfortable. They're not meant to drive on roads. And we were driving them all over roads. Their max speed is like 55 miles an hour. They don't have a lot of horsepower. Are they useful? Yes. Are they more fun after the fact and in the civilian side and like just kind of recreationally and just fucking around and stuff? Yeah, they're way more fun in that regard than they are actually military application. They're pretty miserable. And times when I was a turret gunner for a Humvee, when I was up in the turret, again, early on, all we had was a blast shield face. There was no gun bucket. later on, we got upgraded up armored Humvees that actually had armored bucket for the turret up top. But that was pretty terrible. So they were really dangerous for us early on, especially in urban warfare. Who'd have thunk, you know? But after the fact, they're fun as shit. But yeah, they're not a comfortable ride. They don't have a lot of power. But they can be fun.
What
I'll
about
take-
those APCs? Have you spent much time in them?
I never rode in like the M113s or whatever, the old APCs. I rode around in Bradley fighting vehicles. Which pretty much aren't a thing anymore. They're cramped as shit in their crew compartment. I don't know if anyone really there's a movie about I always forget the name of the movie, but there's a whole story about the original development of the Bradley fighting vehicle. And then all these people came in and said, oh, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, because originally it was supposed to be a replacement troop transport, light assault vehicle. But then it turned into basically a light assault and attack vehicle with that big turret on it and everything. And then everybody wanted more and more and more, and then just reduce the actual troop carrying capacity of it to where it only holds like 4 or 5 guys, and you're packed in there with sardines with all your stuff. And then you've got the crew area for the driver, the gunner, the commander, and everything of the Bradley. Pretty gnarly. Not a comfortable ride either, but I felt a lot safer in those. And it was always nice having a 25mm Bushmaster autocannon sitting up there along with a couple of tow missiles. And so it had a 2 tow missile pod on the side of the turret. And then it usually stored a couple of more tows in the troop transport compartment of the Bradley. And then we had our AT4s and everything else in there too. So they were sweet, but they weren't the most heavily armored. Certain RPG warheads could actually penetrate them. And I knew a guy that was actually from the neighboring town to me that was killed by an RPG when he was in a Bradley. Like that was just the year before I deployed. That was pretty rough. So they were fairly light armored. The newer Strikers, which I did ride in a little bit at the end of my time in the military, but not in a combat zone. Those were okay. Strikers were okay. Definitely more space, a little more comfortable. They can move. They had some power to them and stuff, and they have different configurations for whether being a troop transport. You can put artillery on them. You can actually put a mobile mortar system on them. You can do all kinds of stuff, modularity with the Strikers. Actually, my favorite vehicle, and some of the Scandinavian countries use them, is the Rheinmetall. Is it Rheinmetall? The CV90. Kind of like a Bradley fighting vehicle, but it was faster, had better armor, better engine, and some badass weaponry, and could carry a couple more troops in it. Fantastic. My favorite assault fighting vehicle, the CV90. Thing's awesome.
What is Tommy Gun saying here? SV dead? Is that some
SVD?
type of?
You mean like an SVD sniper, or do you mean like an SV bid, like a suicide vehicle, or a IED vehicle? SVD sniper. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So in the gun bucket, in the gun turret of a Humvee, yeah, early on, dude. Yeah, you were freaking open. It didn't even matter if it was an SVD sniper. It could have been just an AK, dude, on a roof of an AK right over there. Clear shot at you. It was gnarly. So that was pretty bad, especially 2007. That was really bad. We were just starting to get some of the up armored Humvees, but we still had a mix of some of the ones that we had Mad Max too. And so that was interesting to say the least.
I've heard a number of guys that served over there talking about their experiences getting fucking blown up in those things, just all the various ones they have.
Yeah.
And even with the ones with a lot of armor, it sounds like you still got fucked up if you got hit.
Oh yeah, especially like in ground IEDs and stuff. But and then the Iranians had taught Iraqi insurgents about them, the EFPs, the explosively forced projectiles.
Oh, yeah.
Basically just this copper disc that goes molten and turns into a Sabo penetrator to go through armor and then fucks everyone up inside. The other issue is, we have the windshields. Russian RKG grenades, which are an anti-vehicle hand grenade. I actually have a video I'll send you later of some dudes throwing RKGs at a Humvee. You know, an RKG hits the hood in the front, you know, windshield area of a Humvee, and it's messing everything up. It's disabling the engine, and then it's going to kill the driver, kill the team leader sitting in the front or whoever, you know, whether they sat in the front or back by the comms. It depends. But
So
yeah,
what was your SOP if your vehicle got hit? Was it dismount and engage?
yeah, ROE changed like every year, but initially it was, yeah, we, you know, a hit happens, you know, we get out, get our position set, and then return fire, and then we've got the other vehicles providing support and things like that. Get everything we can out of our vehicle, load up on the other ones and get out of there, and then either tow or destroy that vehicle that was already destroyed or damaged. And then our ROE would change because their tactics changed over time too. Our ROE changed a little bit because of that, but also, you know, whoever was in command and their bright ideas for everything.
John Miragla.
Yeah.
It's an honor, man.
Good talking to you, brother. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, I would imagine that the Talibans and the fucking sand monkeys over there would watch you guys, how you reacted, and then adapt to that to kill you guys.
They would adapt tactics, yeah, and then depending on what foreign fighters came in and what other players came in too, yeah, the tactics would change too based on what they were bringing to the table too, coming into the country, and just how different insurgent militia factions would act and everything. So initially it was, you know, just you can shoot anything that moved, you know, or getting shot at and everything, and they were doing a lot of conjunct ambushing along with IED attacks. After a while it changed and they weren't doing the ambushing, just doing IED attacks, or they were just doing ambushing. So it changed like that too. So yeah, fog of war ROEs will change, absolutely, you know, and then it comes down to leadership too, and they see if something works in one area, they'll try and implement it across the board. They see something really didn't work in another area, they're going to try and nix that across the board. And it's a messy situation. That's just one of those ingrained dynamics of war, unfortunately, you know. Made it harder for us some years, and some years, or especially earlier on, it was a lot easier. So,
well, he who is adaptable and able to adapt and overcome will be successful in war. I mean, I think we've seen that, you know, the Taliban kind of proved that.
Yep. Yeah, Iraqis did too, you know. Yeah. And you know, it's like that with anything. And I mean, you look at how the Ukrainians adapt to the Russians and how the Russians are trying to adapt to how the Ukrainians are doing things. You know, you see it all over the place. So not just the wars and conflicts we were in, but you can learn a lot from a lot of different angles and theaters where stuff's cooking off. So you know, and you look at in somewhat conventional history, still one of the most effective fighting forces that has ever existed was the Rhodesian Light Infantry and the Sea Scouts and some of those forces. And then during and after them, the South African Recce's and some of those forces. They were some of the most effective fighting forces across the board. For how long the Bush Wars went on, the small amount of casualties and losses that they had is just impressive. I mean, you look at Russia when they went to Afghanistan back in the day, they got spanked. They lost a lot of people. I mean, granted, we were kind of helping the Mujahideen, but you know, and supplying them with stuff like stingers and things, but they got spanked. They lost numbers way more than what we lost in both Iraq and Afghanistan together. And even now the Russians are getting spanked again. They've lost more numbers, even more than Afghanistan, and more than us in Iraq and Afghanistan too. They've lost a lot of forces.
The numbers that we're hearing about as far as Russian troops being killed, are those fairly
something
accurate?
like 50,000, supposedly.
Shit! Wow.
Supposedly the number's that high now.
In 6 months.
Yeah. And it's going to go up even more, especially with all the NATO weapons and Western weapons that the Ukrainians are using now, and how effective and precise it can be.
Do you think that we'll see Ukraine start to fire shit more and more into Russia proper?
I don't think so. I think some of the small instances that potentially that has happened, and they were very specific targeted operations to what degree they actually happened or not, based on who's saying what and everything. They were very, very purposeful and intentional in that regard. Ukraine doesn't want to really have to move into Russia or anything. No, they just want they just want to defend their and have their land. Very much territorial defense in that aspect for them. You know, if they do have to go and do a little operation here, go send a soft unit in to take a bridge out that's just on the Russian side, they're going to. Anybody would. You know what I mean, look at what the Israelis do dealing with Iran and everything. They go into Iran every once in a while. Largely, they just protect Israel, but every once in a while, they'll move into one of those areas and go do a couple of ops or they love their targeted airstrikes and drone strikes, you know, as we do too. So, you know, it's a protocol and a process. So, you know, it goes without saying. I mean, yeah, it's probably happened. It's probably going to happen here and there, but I don't think anything full scale is going to happen in that regard. Just very specific targeted things to disable and mitigate logistical effectiveness and otherwise for the Russian forces. So I think a big one is they really need to take out the railways that Russia has connection into Ukraine with. So the Russian railways that just run straight into Ukraine and back, they need to disable them on the Ukrainian side, but also on the Russian side. Because that's a big way still how Russia mass moves everything. Supplies, vehicles, men, everything is by train. They don't have the air. They have air capability, but not like even we do here. You know, they move everything by train. China does it too. They move everything by train, in large. So you take out the train, you take out the railways, and you're gonna deal some big blows to them. You know, and you saw that in World War II as well. You saw that in Vietnam, even, you know, you saw that in other wars as well, taking out main thoroughfares and modes of logistically moving, transporting things. That's huge.
Yeah, that was a big thing with the OSS back in World War II, right? How to take out trains properly, and there's more to it.
Yep. And I mean, that's
blow up. You can't just blow up a little piece of rail. It doesn't work that way.
You got to blow bridges. You got to take out miles of track. You got to do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And I mean, I know some of the tanks that we used ended up getting retrofitted so that they could put them on the railways to run the railways the opposite way towards.
Oh, really?
Towards bad guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
I know they were doing that too, in a small capacity. They did that with a couple of Shermans and I think a couple of light British tanks. I forget which one. Funny enough.
Interesting. Before we wrap things up, I know Apocalypse is bringing up North Koreans showing up for Russia. I mean, what's your take on this, man?
It's a guy who's just fighting in Ukraine and is back in the States right now, Sivdiv. He was talking about that too. He was fighting with the YPG with the Kurds for a couple of years. The Yazidis and the Kurds, and then he went and was fighting in Ukraine recently. He was talking about that a little bit too. I don't really know what to make of it. I want to say it's just a propaganda thing. I don't think that many North Korean forces are going to be showing up to support the Russians. I mean, logistically, the North Koreans couldn't support them, nor can the Russians. I mean, 100,000 North Koreans.
That's what I was thinking too.
That's near impossible to logistically support in the state that they're in right now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Russia's already having issues with what's that?
No, it could be a lot of propaganda. Like
I feel like it is a lot of propaganda. Will we see any number of North Koreans go there? I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it's going to be that many though. Not nearly that many. So
North Korea hasn't ever fought in a war
besides the Korean War,
right?
Yeah.
They would just get their fucking asses kicked. I feel
like
malnutritioned out. Like
rife with parasites. I mean, yeah, the military effectiveness level of frontline North Korean forces, South Korea would spank them.
I feel like one shepherd would fucking spank me.
I mean, so and Doc Larson can talk a lot more about this because he's dealt with the North Koreans directly in his time serving in Korea, in the 80s and early 90s. But I mean, they're smart. They have fight, but logistical effectiveness and otherwise, they just don't have it. They just don't.
I mean, do you think that their battle tactics or like, do you think they actually do battle drills and shit like that?
I mean, yeah, they do. And we see the propaganda of them all the time doing training and shooting off artillery and everything. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they do some battle drills and everything. They're a very strict regimented military force from everything that I can tell. I just don't think they're all that combat effective because of their logistical issues and just the condition of their forces.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. No, Ed, I haven't seen that, but I'm gonna check out 800. Good foreign World War II.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it a while ago. My favorite foreign war film, and it was remade in 2013, I believe. It's a Finnish war film about the continuation war from the Finnish side called Tuttometan Sotilas, or The Unknown Soldier in English. There was an original version, I think, from the 80s, but they remade it in 2013. Fantastic movie. And it's like almost 4 hours long, but it is super good.
That's not the one where they have the German like Hitler Youth POWs and they're disarming landmines. That's not the same one, is it?
No, that's a different movie, but that was I believe that's a Danish movie.
Yeah.
Which that's actually a really good movie too. That's probably one of my other favorite foreign war movies, like about that time period. I forget what that one's called, but that's a really good movie too.
Yeah, that was a weird movie, but it was a good movie.
It was weird, but it actually happened. So
yeah,
you know, but yeah, so the Finns in the continuation war fighting Russia and in the beginning of World War II, they were getting some supplies from Germany, like the helmets and stuff. So they were wearing the German style of helmets and things like that. But they were trying to stay as independent and autonomous as they could, like Sweden was kind of, but they had to fight the Russians because it's fucking Russia, and they weren't done from the Winter War. So continuation war. So that fight happened. Fantastic movie though. Really, really, really recommend that movie. It's super good.
Ed says that he heard there was Chinese in Ukraine getting combat experience now.
I don't think that's accurate. I haven't seen any reports from any of my people or really any other reports saying that there's Chinese there.
That's one thing about the Chinese.
Probably
don't have a lot of combat experience at this point.
No, they don't. A couple of small ticks, mostly doing the anti-piracy stuff in conventional times. That's really all the experience they've had since World War II, really. And then Vietnam, their influence with the North Vietnamese. Because there were Chinese fighting in Vietnam at that time. But since then, I mean, only a couple of ticks, and it was all basically taking back Chinese vessels from Somalian pirates and shit. So they don't really have combat experience. And as far as them being in Ukraine, there is no way to actually verify that claim. And everything I've seen from various sources and then people I know on the ground, that's not true.
I'm gonna watch that movie at some point. The 800. It's cool. Set in Shanghai during World War II. It's pretty cool.
Your dad was in the old school movie. Oh, I love Run Silent, Run Deep. Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that.
My favorite submarine movie besides Das Boot.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And Hunt for Red October, just because it is what it is. But
that's my favorite. Hunt for Red October.
It's a great movie. Great.
Well, listen, man, I gotta get ready here. I'm going out in a little bit. So good talking to you guys.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, as always. Damn, we almost ran 3 hours. That's fucking awesome.
When you get to talking about guy shit, you know how it goes.
Yeah, it's so good.
We're gonna try to probably do either a weekly or every 2 week. I don't like the word bi-weekly, so I'm gonna say every 2 week intelligence brief. We're gonna try to do it weekly, but if we can't, we'll do it every 2 weeks, and this will be a thing. So, DJ, have a good night, sir.
Hey, you as well, brother. And
And
awesome talking to everybody in the chat and everything. It's good
yeah,
seeing you guys
guys.
again.
Tommy Gunn, Apocalypse, Ed Lee, all the heads, Eximus. Thanks, guys. Until next time,
AMR,
please
yeah.
remember your first and last line of defense. And DJ.
Stay adaptive and stay lethal.